That's right. It's finals week here in Gamestars League. We've gone from over 70 competitors down to 32, down to 16, and today we're going to take it all the way down to 14. And of course, the end of this week, we will crown our first Gamestars League champion, who will take home over $7,000 of prize money. Hello, everybody. I'm Andrew Guy. Joining me today is Eric Benemu, our former world champion, a guy that knows a lot about winning and what you need to do in that final home stretch to take home that gold. Eric, how you been, man? It's been a couple weeks.
Yeah, it has, and I'm so excited to get back into it. Like you said, finals week. I absolutely love finals week, and it's been a minute for me because 2020 did not pan out for me as a finals contender. But like you said, I do know a little bit about that, and I know that this is when the nerves start kicking in, the adrenaline starts pumping, and I'm so excited to see the best players that are in this tournament really go for it all.
Yeah, you guys have seen me casting CRL for a long time. You've seen Eric as a coach, but Gamestars League is just a little bit different. Our format, of course, we've gone through BO5s. Of course, our finals will be BO7s, but it's been all about these group stages, basically the way we've done it all the way through. And this is actually not the group that we'll be seeing today. We'll be seeing Group A, but Group D will be going, I believe, on Friday. Friday, I believe, is the final day of that. But what it is, we have our group stages, and our group stages have been broken down into 4 players per group. And before, what we had been doing, Eric, is we'd be coming back to Group A, Group B, Group C, or Group D later on down the road to figure out who was actually going to get eliminated and who would be moving on forward. But for our finals week, we're going to be seeing 5 matches per day, all BO5, starting with this group right here.
Yeah, there's no time to, okay, let me relax, let me get back into it. Now it's time. You need to be mentally strong. You need to fight your way through it because the decider match is on the same exact day, and that is a big game changer for the players. And this first group is awesome.
Yeah, it's a very, very exciting group. Burkhan, Jensi, Aslan, Hugo, and In Thrill, and of course a big part of Gamestars League. Other than our format being BO5, it's very similar to duels, so the cards have been coming into play a lot. Eric, every player has to bring 3 decks to the competition. They have to win with all 3 of those decks, but those decks can only repeat 6 cards, which means there has to be 2 unique cards in every single deck, and through 4 weeks of competition, those are our most popular cards, but these are our most popular decks.
Yeah, and the only thing that I'm missing here out of those cards and these decks is that Mother Witch. I want to see that be used a lot more this stage in the game. It is very, very strong when used in the right circumstances, and we've seen a lot of the players also bring bats, Skarmy, graveyards, and when you have that Mother Witch, it's almost a guaranteed win every time. So I want to see that implemented, and like you said, you have to keep 6 cards. So that allows you to technically play this same deck 3 times with minor switches, and we've seen that strategy come out of some players.
Yeah, and it's worked for some and it hasn't worked for others. And what's really interesting about the cards that we were just looking at is, like you said, we didn't see a lot of Mother Witch. We didn't see a lot of what's really popular in the meta right now, which is Royal Giant Heal Spirit with Fishboy in there, and of course Expo. Expo is actually everywhere right now. I'm curious if we'll see it again here this week. So before we get into the group action of Group A, let's take a look at the players from our very first match. So a battle in Turkey to start things off today in our international group stage finals. We're going to be hopping into that battle here in just one moment. And you saw that Burkan was a little afraid of Aslan and running into him down the road, obviously knowing him from Turkey and from the great performance we saw from Aslan in the past weeks.
Yeah, and he also mentioned Hugo. So this is a stacked group. That Hugo is obviously on the other side of the bracket for this group, but it is someone that you have to look forward to facing, and he was very, very, very strong early on in this competition. But what I also want to see is people like Hugo, right? They had a lot of time off, and that time usually you have to shake off that rust, shake off the jitters, because a lot of these players did fight their way in those decider matches. So there's still more in the groove, and that might affect them as well.
Yeah, the players that kind of had to go through the gauntlet of the rest of our international group stages before we got to finals, it gave them a lot of practice, you know, getting back out there, getting used to having commentators talking over their games, having to pick those decks on the fly or make sure they know which one they want to use next. And of course, adapting to the meta. Adapting to the meta was a really, really big part of it. You even saw Burkan talking about it in his video, saying that, you know, when we first started this, some of the players that I played against, they didn't really choose the right cards in the right decks to adapt to the current meta. Now that we've been into it for almost a month, we've seen it ebb and flow quite a bit. Is there anything that really stands out to you right now currently in the meta, Eric? Maybe a card that's over or underutilized, or something out there you should take advantage of?
Right now, I would say kind of stray away a little bit from the E-Giant. I would usually say go all out for the E-Giant in this meta, but we've seen such a massive shift into Tesla decks, into Mortar decks, that it's almost impossible for that E-Giant to actually get through, and it's because of how strong it was. So you need to be very, very careful if you do pick one of these E-Giant decks. The majority of the meta right now is either running, like I said, Tesla Mortar, or even P.E.K.K.A.s all over the place. So it's not that strong of a card anymore. The card is still strong, just not in the meta and how it adapted to it. So I'd be very careful there.
Yeah, traditional P.E.K.K.A bridge spam has become more and more popular when you talk about cards that are able to deal with things like the Electro Giant, but also dealing with things like the Elite Barbarians. The Elite Barbarians feel like they are maybe one of the cards that got buffed and have yet fallen out of favor. They've been very, very popular through all archetypes. It feels like you can still kind of squeeze them into anything. And the ability to kind of split them in the back and create dual lane pressure for only 6 elixir, it's kind of surprising how strong they are, but no one really seems to be complaining about the Elite Barbarians right now.
I think they complained so much that they ran out of the complaint juice, and they realized that no matter what they say, nothing's going to change with that. And the reason, in my opinion, that it hasn't actually fallen out of the meta is because it gets so much utility defensively as well as offensively. A lot of the cards that fall out of meta are those cards that are very strong offensive but not that strong defense, and once they get countered, you can't really use them anymore. The Elite Barbarians can stop anything, and that's why it's still being used a lot.
Yeah, and you see that these decks right here that Aslan ran are very, very strong decks, pretty popular decks. The only one is the middle deck there, the Mega Knight Graveyard deck, but Graveyard did find itself very successful, I believe, in our second or third week of the group stage, just because people stopped using Mother Witch as much, so Graveyard started to find its way back into the meta. I'm very curious to see if that'll happen today or not, but at the top of the screen, you see a Mortar deck there with Valkyrie instead of E-Barbs. Big part of that is dealing with the E-Barbs. That splash damage from the Valkyrie, very, very strong. And of course, the deck at the bottom that he has 100% win rate with, that is the most popular deck on our top ladder, according to Royale API right now.
It seems like everyone is having a great time using it and a lot of success, except for me. Every time I use it, I lose with it. So I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. But yes, that deck is so strong in the right player's hands. And it all comes down to knowing exactly when to RG in the back, when to RG on the bridge. It is a lot of understanding, but it's that quick cycle with the Skellies and the Heal Spirit that allows it to continuously push. And that's why it's so strong.
And you look at Aslan's win rates there with these decks, all very strong. And of course, the average elixir, that's something that I was going to mention a moment ago when you were talking about the Electro Giant not being as popular. Most decks right now are finding themselves in that range of 3 to 4 elixir, which is interesting when you talk about heavier decks being popular for a while, but when you're going up against the Electro Giant deck specifically, and you have a deck that can cycle that much faster with a building in it, like you were saying, Eric, it makes that matchup so manageable. As long as you're not playing dumb with your building, as long as you're not getting that that highest single target DPS card out of cycle when you need it, it becomes a pretty manageable card. And I gotta admit, I hated the Electro Giant when it first joined the game.
I agree with you. That E-Giant was just so annoying to play against. But the meta right now, it feels like anyone that's playing E-Giant, you're kind of saying, yes, I'm playing against E-Giant, because your deck probably counters it. And a deck that I really want to see here, especially used from people like Aslan, Hugo, One Hive, these very, very high tier players, is that Hog EQ with the Firecracker and the Tesla spam. It is so strong right now as well. Viper's in the top 5. So many players are in the top 100 with it, and it defends against almost anything. The only thing, the key to victory with that, is defend that Firecracker like it's a princess.
You and I were talking a lot about the Firecracker a couple of weeks ago. We saw someone here in the competition. Maybe it was Predator. Forgive me if I'm mistaken, Predator, but I think it was. He had Firecracker in all 3 of his decks when he came out for his second day of competition, and they were such a nuisance to deal with. Again, when you talk about the meta shifting, a lot less poisons out there, a lot more fireballs, spells that are much harder to land on top of that Firecracker. And since it cycles so quickly, especially with that deck, you can stack them on the board and it becomes very, very difficult to deal with. And I think one thing that's really underrated about the Firecracker, Eric, is the amount of splash damage it gets on an opponent's Princess Tower when they're defending. I have had that happen to me so many times.
It's a combination of like a princess and a magic archer. It splashes so long, such a big radius, just like the princess, but you also can't line anything up with the tower like if you were playing against a magic archer. It's so frustrating once that splash comes in, because there's nothing you can really do. And like you said, the spells have changed so much over the past. We used to see a lot of poison and a lot of arrows. Once that E-Giant decks came in, those golem decks, that came out of no one really can use arrows anymore, because lava wasn't the prevalent, big tank deck anymore. And that is huge for something like the Firecracker. The Firecracker struggles only against arrows.
One thing that I've also seen coming up a little bit more than it had the last month, Eric, is Golem Clone again with Night Witch, because of what you're talking about. You talk about those spells. I mean, if you're a smart Golem Clone player, you wait for maybe the big spell to be out of cycle, your opponent to be down a little in elixir, you drop that clone, and you know they only have one spell again. And it's all about, when you've talked about it with Lava Clone, you get both those spells out of cycle and you get a good clone in, or you get that clone in late enough to catch just part of that second small spell. And it's really, really difficult to deal with when you don't have arrows, when you don't have snowball, when you don't have poison. So I'm curious if we'll see something like that. That might be reaching just a little bit, because we saw at the beginning of this competition, Golem Clone had very little success.
Yes, but like you said, the spells are a big thing. And when you're playing Golem Clone, Lava Clone, any clone really, and the spell you're going up against Fireball, I mean, you're in a great position. You love to see that, because if you're playing Lava Clone and they Fireball your lava, you have all the puffs ready to go. And usually those Fireball decks do not come with the snowball, they come with the log, with the barb barrel, something like that. So those bats go to work, those lava puffs go to work. And the same goes for that Mother Witch, right? When you fire a Mother Witch, Fireball and Mother Witch that's cloned, it is a disaster. Sometimes you kind of just rather leave it there and say, no, I'm not gonna Fireball this.
Yeah, it's hard to, pick and choose those interactions when those cards are still newer to the game, unless you are playing at the highest level, which these guys are at. And as we are waiting, we apologize for a bit of the delay right now, as players, I think, are having a bit of technical issues, while Eric and I just kind of talk through what all has happened here. As you heard, those players were from Turkey. We have players that are from all over the world, Denmark, the UK, Kazakhstan, Russia, players that have gone from, like I said, 72 down to 32. We're at 16 today. We're going to be eliminating 2 players every single day till we get to our finals on Saturday and Sunday. So 5 BO5s Tuesday through Friday, which I know you and I are both really excited about. And then BO7s on Saturday and Sunday. I can't even think of the last time that I cast a BO7. When's the last time you played in a BO7, Eric?
I don't think I ever played in one competitively. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think I actually ever played in one, because I started my coaching career with CRL. So before that, I played, but it wasn't real leagues, like it wasn't things like this. We would play for $200, $500. If we were lucky, $1,000. This is 40 grand. And like CRL was never best of 7, not even at the world finals. And with this type of format, it's very interesting to see the players and what decks they're going to be able to bring.
All right, so after a bit of a delay, we get a lot of the things we were just talking about, Eric. A Firecracker comes out with a mortar there from Burkhan, who is Ethan. You see at the top of the screen there. Fireball does come out from Aslan, hits the Firecracker, gets a little bit of tower damage, and a lot of the cards that you and I were just speaking of already seeing in play, as Burkan is off to just a very slight lead in our first minute of play.
Yeah, and this goes to show that Burkan, he spoke about it in his video. I adapted to the meta. I was ready for the meta. My opponents weren't. And here we go again. Firecracker and Mortar. Great cards. Very, very strong in the current meta. And he clearly adapts very well and does his homework on what is working.
Yeah, and that's one thing that you heard him talk about in his pre-game interview there. And, you know, Aslan maybe didn't speak about it as much, but he talked a lot more about understanding the macro of the game. And that was one thing that you and I highlighted when we watched him play, was there was a lot of if-or moments. And it's like, if I do this or do this, but he would always choose the correct one. You know, he would always go for the right decision. He'd look at the macro of the match, and he made a lot of great decisions last second that made his opponent make mistakes. And Tombstone was a card that you and I kind of talked pretty poorly or negatively about early on, but now with maybe E-Barbs being so popular, is it a better building?
Yeah, it's not that bad, and I don't know if it's the fact that Tombstone is great or that every other building is just not that good. When you talk about the Bomb Tower, the Infernal Tower, which were the main buildings for so long in CR, right? And when those fall out of favor, maybe you go into new options, you try new things. I still am not the biggest fan of Tombstone, especially in matchups when you do go against that Golem, the Lava, those heavy tanks. They just doesn't do enough, but it's working out in this one.
Yeah, it's, you know, just not a whole lot of HP there, and with the deck that you see Aslan running, takes a bit of time to come all the way back around and get it back on the board. So, you know, right now at least Tombstone is doing its job as the miner gets into that left-hand side tower. You saw Aslan, he's fireballed those firecrackers every single time they've come out for a -1 trade, even for 0 tower damage as you saw last time. He does it again here, recognizing, as you said, Eric, you know, Ethan's or Burkan's best thing he can do for himself in this matchup is to protect his princess, or in this case, firecracker.
Yeah, that firecracker is your game changer, especially if he gets lucky with the timing here. He does not. That is a little bit unfortunate. A lot of the times when you have firecracker against Lava Hound, if you get a good timing, it actually takes care of every single pop as soon as it is about to explode, but has to use the road delivery there. And he's struggling a lot in part to that Tombstone. It's actually a great building against Mortar because those skellies distracted, and you know that better than anyone.
Yeah, those skellies distracting, it is incredibly frustrating. You do see a King Tower activation there, which is going to help Aslan out defensively a little bit moving forward, but very little time left, and most likely tower going to go down. And yeah, as you said, Eric, that Tombstone did a very, very good job holding those elite barbarians at bay, and of course never able to get that firecracker up high. And on top of the Tombstone was Burkan, because he had to continue to protect his tower, get that Lava Hound damage down as quickly as he could.
Yeah, and the one thing that I'm realizing now in the deck that doesn't make a lot of sense to me is using Firecracker in a minor Mortar deck is not the way I would go, just because of how easily King Tower is activated with the Firecracker. That is its biggest weakness. Yeah, it has all these strengths, but you could almost always guarantee that you're going to get a King Tower activation when your opponent has that Firecracker. And to use minor when you know that they're going to activate King Tower is a little bit rough, in my opinion.
Yeah, we've seen little variants of this deck in the history of Clash Royale. When you have a Mortar with a Firecracker, a lot of times you'll see Knight come in, you'll see Skeleton Barrel come in, other bait aspects of it, but not, as you said, using the Miner as much, because it's very difficult to get good amount of damage in late game when your opponent can overspend defensively, and you have that King Tower there to help clean up a bit of damage. But you know, that's a lot of talk here about Burkan, who did drop game number 1. Aslan, it seemed like a very, very just kind of coasting right on through game 1.
Yeah, he had a great deck, a lot of strengths in this meta. He used the elite barbarians instead of the regular barbs that we've seen. I think it was Abdullah who used the regular barbs in his lava decks. It goes to show that you can really vary. You don't have to stay with the traditional. Take that risk, go with what's working. And I think that's the reason he was able to not only defend because of the Tombstone, but a lot of the times he was able to defend the elite barbarians, Ice Golem, Miner, because he had his own set of elite barbarians. And that was very smart out of him.
What I would have liked to see more out of Burkan in that last game was maybe getting that Firecracker in the center of his side of the map more, as we saw early on. That way you weren't giving Aslan tower damage every single time, but you understand, because you wanted to make sure it was focusing directly on top of the Lava Hound. So then he would be able to get the firecracker damage on the lava. He'd be able to drop the royal delivery on top of the pups and then fireball the tombstone plus what other defense came down. I know that's a lot of things to kind of put into sequence and hope, but as you were just saying, Eric, that is what Aslan did every single time. It was just so easy for him to defend. So you got to find a way to break through, and maybe it is making those negative trades in the center of your opponent's map to just try to get something through.
And another big point is you don't need the firecracker to be hitting the lava every time. You have the royal delivery, like you said. And to be fair, who cares if the big bad lava is actually hitting your tower? What is that, 30 points every time it hits? It'll go down eventually. That firecracker will still get 3 or 4 hits if it's placed in the middle, and you get no fireball value, and then you just deliver it. The delivery not only takes care of the pups, but it'll take the miner. So I think it's just some adjustments that need to be made. And even though it might seem like a lot, like you said, it's not really that much when you're at this level and you're fighting for that much.
You know, during that game, Eric, there was a moment when the lava hound popped, the pups came out, and the firecracker shot was just a second ahead of it all, right? So it misses all that. And what you're talking about right there is a surefire defense. That royal delivery comes down, it cleans up the pups 100%. It gets on top of the miner 100%. Now, while it is a beautiful cleanup with that firecracker to clean up all those pups with one shot, kills the lava hound, kills all the pups, you're kind of hoping for that interaction. And in this case, this late in the game, this far in his finals, you got to make sure you're doing those 100% interactions.
Yeah, it's kind of when you play against the Skelly Barrel and you get the nice interaction where it's like, oh, you placed a bomber and it drops it as soon as everything comes down and it takes care of everyone. They're great, but they're not going to happen every single time, and you can't count on that happening every time. So it's better just to go with the delivery and make sure your firecracker stays alive, which is something I spoke about. If you can defend that firecracker, you force out so much elixir out of your opponent.
And I'm curious, Eric, and looking like here for you guys watching, we're probably going to see that Royal Giant matchup that's a very, very popular deck right now. I'm curious when we're talking about those situations of, man, I just totally lost my train of thought. I had such a good thing to bring up. All right, we'll get to the game here for a second. We'll come back to it. Gotta remember exactly what we were just saying because it's very interesting.
We're warming up. Maybe it was a firecracker, maybe it was placements, maybe it was mirror match, who knows? But we have to warm up also. It's not just the players.
That's right.
This matchup is very fisherman based. We've seen it so many times. Whoever has the better fisherman predictions, whoever can really get that out of cycle and force an extra unit to come down, usually ends up winning this. It's not about the RGs, it's not about the elite barbarians like it might seem. It's all about that fisherman.
Okay, so I remember now. I'm back. My brain worked. So we were talking about 100% effective defenses, and I was gonna say, there's some times when I'll try to pull out a fancy late mortar to pull a balloon back to the river, or I'll maybe try to place a mortar or a building offset to the right to pull that hog or royal giant last second, and then you miss it, right? We were just talking about how the firecracker misses that cleanup, or if you miss cleanups defensively. When you were coaching, did you always tell your players you must always go for the 100% defense, not the fancy defense? Do you understand what I'm talking about here?
Yeah, I do understand exactly what you're saying, but no, I actually did not have that conversation because I was very fortunate, coach. I had the greatest players probably in the history of CRL when you talk about full roster of 4. So I knew they were going to make the right plays, and if they didn't, if there was 1 or 2 mistakes, it is what it is. It happens. I'll take I like when players risk it when they know that they can. If it costs you the whole match, we had spoken about these type of things. Okay, you can risk things in certain circumstances, but when we're playing the match of our career, when you're playing that knockout match, you got to be a little more careful. You can't just go in and risk it all. So it's all about knowing when and where. If you're up in the set, go for it. If you're down in the set, play safe.
And that's a perfect kind of segue for what we just saw, even though that game felt like it went and came so quickly. Was kind of what you were talking about, the fisherman placement. In the highlights of Burkan in the intro today, you saw him catch a fisherman pull on a royal giant with a goblin hut, which is a really nice catch there. It's a building, it's a negative trade, but it was really heads up. And you saw here Aslan, his fisherman, just not doing the work that he needed. At one point there, you know, pretty early on in a double elixir, there were 2 Royal Giants on that left-hand side. You saw him call a good game. You saw Fisherman sitting by his Princess Tower. His opponent's Royal Giant was right on top, and, you know, a very, very easy bounce back here for Burkan, who struggled in game number 1, but dominates in this mirror matchup.
Yeah, and I love to see that mental fortitude, right? You always love to see when someone gets dominated, because he did get dominated in game number 1. Now he just came out like if there was no game 1, and it looked like he completely took control of everything. And it was those Fishermans. It always is. Whenever you play a mirror match with Fishermans and RGs, whoever has the better Fisherman predictions, the better Fisherman placements, always wins.
Yeah, and it really is crazy that you can pinpoint it to one card and many interactions. But when you watch the highest level of Clash Royale, you'll see those battles, those chess games going on at the ridge, or at the river, at the bridge, all about Fishermen. So we're going to go back to the 2 decks that our players have lost with thus far. Oh no, excuse me, Aslan actually changing it up here. He's not going to go Royal Giant here, as we see a bit of a change, right?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be the RG, but it is definitely different because of that. And oh, that does not activate, and it does get a hit. So nice firecracker there. I thought it was going to be the same deck when we saw that Fisherman, but with that E-Wiz, definitely a change, and I'm not 100% sure what he's playing here.
So Fisherman's going to work across that bridge. As he gets another Goblin Cage down on the board, Spear Goblin's going to be there for easy cleanup, and Ethan in a nice lead for now in single elixir, but of course the miner should be in lead in single, and Aslan's deck a little heavier as he just sits back and continues to cycle his utility cards. I'm sure we'll see that win condition come out here in the next about 25 seconds or so.
Yeah, and that was rough.
Unfortunate.
Yeah, and he does have delivery, which is such a strong card. We've talked about it so many times. If you get it in the right placement, if you have the right matchup, that card is so strong. And now Mega Knight coming out here, not a really a deck that we see very often, especially not Mega Knight with all the P.E.K.K.A.s and the E-Giants and everything.
Yeah, and I was going to say this must be Graveyard, because we saw a deck kind of like this from Aslan before, and Burkan just gets caught looking. Nothing in cycle, nothing to defend. He has to fireball defensively on top of the skeletons. The E-Barbs have to turn around, and just like that. This has been a crazy first match of the day, first match of the week, Eric, where it feels like it's just uppercuts being thrown by competitor every single game.
Yeah, once he saw that Graveyard, I'm sure he was wishing he had that delivery in hand. A little bit unfortunate, but there was no way he could really know, I think. It's not the traditional deck that you see nowadays, and until that Mega Knight came down, we weren't really sure what we were going to see. And I'm sure he was in the same position, but now it might just be a little bit too late, even if he gets that delivery down.
Yeah, delivery going to try to come down here on top. Does help a little bit there. Mega Knight, though, going to leap forward, and that is going to do it. Big Mega Knight leaps on through with a splash damage from the jump. And of course, those big brawling fists going to take that tower down. 2 games in favor of Aslan. But I think what's really interesting about this set, Eric, is I don't feel like either of them are outplaying the other one by a large factor. It's just one game is so handedly in red, and then the other one goes to blue.
Yeah. It seems like these games are taking 30 seconds before we know who wins them. And it's like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do this. Oh, that was nice, watch this. And then he just goes and takes tower. And it happened in the RG game, it happened now, and I'm curious to see, will we have another shift in the last matchup? He knows what he's going up against. That is a positive thing. There is still one hidden deck for Burkan. We know exactly what Aslan is coming with, that RG. So will he use that last deck? Is it a counter, or will he go to RG, which, you know better than I do, usually does very well against RG?
Yeah, and you know, it does feel like even though he has struggled with this mortar deck, it cycles quickly. He's able to create a lot of pressure. He doesn't have to worry about King Tower activations with his miner there. I think, honestly, I mean, yes, the Firecracker can have it happen, but I think you go right back to what you've been playing. Even though it's struggled a bit, that mortar is going to really help you defensively. And what do I know? I'm just a caster. Wow. He busts out Lava Hound in the back, Fisherman at the bridge in response from Aslan here.
And I'm very curious to see what lava deck this is, because if there's one thing I really don't like playing against with lava, it is RG. So I'm sure he knows that it matches up well, because he had the option to either go mortar or lava. And if you're going to pick lava, it has to have a good matchup.
the Inferno putting in some nice work there. Heal Spirit going to distract for a second. Now a group of cards maybe going to come down.
Yeah.
No, nothing is there. So maybe waiting for the Fireball to come out. There it is, but Baby Dragon behind. And that is towered down, basically. What a beautiful start here for Burkan. And I think a part of that, Eric, was when this started, we just saw the naked Fisherman left lane, which it could have just been that they dropped the card at the exact same time, but that 3 elixir not having that on defense kind of hurt, it seemed like.
Yeah, it definitely did, because it's not only that you no longer have that 3 elixir, but that card is useless. He doesn't have to really defend it. Sure, you're gonna do 400 or 500 damage. That doesn't really matter. I have a Lava and an Inferno Dragon coming down the other lane, but now how do you defend? And that's why he chose this deck.
Beautiful Skarmy there. You see the good game coming out, and this is why I love this format, man. It feels so much more like this crazy game of chess instead of just interactions inside of those 5 minutes from start to finish. It's also so much more about this beautiful deck choice and knowing what you're running into, and that's Skarmy taking care of those E-barbs, and just really cool stuff here in match number 1 of the day.
Yeah, and he needs to Fireball this or it actually won't get any damage, and he doesn't have the Fireball ready. And Azza should have known that. He gave up such a big push without any real reason. You got to make those count, because if he did have a Fireball there, that Mega Minion would have taken out the Inferno Dragon as well. And it's such a big difference in what we would be seeing right now in the matchup. And it might have just been one of those, you know, desperation pushes.
Miner goes to the back after that Skarmy clears that Mother Witch off the board. A second Mother Witch comes down, but
nice.
There is a Fireball to respond. Pups are there, and so is an Inferno Dragon. 1 tower down and only 700 HP remains for Aslan. He gets that Royal Giant down at the bridge.
And the one thing that I'm looking at now is if he actually plays that Mortar deck to perfection, he has a great matchup in it. The Elite Barbarians are great. He has Cycle, Elite Barbarians, Mortar versus RG as the last matchup. This could go very much in his favor.
Burkan just needs to sit back comfortably, know exactly what you just talked about when you're in regards to matchup, and just play a very, very smart defensive game, right? I mean, you talk about the best Mortar players in the world or the best Cycle players in the world. The second they recognize the matchup, they go, perfect, I'm going to defend the whole game. I'm going to spell cycle. Perfect, I'm going to defend the whole game. I'm going to save my spells for defense. I'm only going to do minor chip. Whatever it is, you got to recognize that right now. You already know what deck you're playing up against. You already know what deck you have. You should already know what you're going to do in this matchup. Eric, what would you do?
I would sit back pretty, especially knowing that you have minor Mortar. You don't just have Mortar. A lot of the players, when they have just Mortar decks, they need to make those offensive Mortars try to connect once or twice to get enough chip damage. But at this point, you know, if you Mortar in the back every time, you Firecracker the other side, obviously you don't want to put that all together, and then you just Elite Barbarians, you'll be able to defend that Royal Giant every single time, no matter what. You have enough defenses with the Royal Delivery to take care of the E-barbs if they're coming in. You have the Fireball. You have everything you need. So there is no reason to get aggressive, chip away with that Miner, and that should be game over.
And you have to have confidence in your cycle. That's the thing I learned the most when watching Igor and Lapo play, is they'll make some decision, and I'm like, oh my god, but how on earth are you going to defend X? And then you'll see that they got all the way back around their cycle again to get back to the Skellies, to get back to the Spear Goblins, to get back to that cheap defensive card. And I truly believe you do exactly what you're saying, and already we can see Burkan doing that. Play slow, cycle in the back, get chip damage where you can.
And speaking about Igor and Lapo, the big thing that they do better than anyone else when they're playing these Mortar type of decks is those Spear Goblins get so much value always, right? You see the Spear Goblins and the Firecrackers kind of not being able to get taken off the board, and they end up not only doing a lot of work offensive with those miners, but on those RGs, it's that little extra damage that you get, the reason why it doesn't connect.
And I like that log there to push that Ice Golem back, expecting the Miner to come in. E-Barbs catch the Miner. Ice Golem doesn't tank for it. And a pretty nice cleanup there from Aslan.
And that will actually take it, but it still takes care of everything. And look at that. Elite Barbarians Fisherman just got fully defended by a Firecracker Royal Delivery. He doesn't even have to use Mortar. He doesn't have to use Ice Golem. He doesn't have to kite anything. That is a little bit of what this matchup is going to be. And now a nice Fireball. It's amazing.
Yeah. And you see Aslan just going, oh man, this is not a good place to be in. And just to kind of echo your sentiment about those Spear Goblins, there's always these phases. They come every few months where you'll see pros just be like, oh god, bats are so broken. Oh, spear goblins are so broken. Oh, skeletons are so broken. And it's just about the meta shifting and using those cheap cards to their utmost. It is crazy when you watch the best in the world use spear goblins correctly, and you're always like, how is there never a spell and cycle for those goblins? How is there never a card that can even get on top of them? And that is why they're mentioned the way that we're talking about them. 2 elixir that are impossible to get to unless you work to do it.
Yeah, I always love seeing those tweets, the bats are broken tweets. They're hilarious to me because when I use bats, it's like, okay, they're not really doing anything. Maybe I get a little bit extra value, but it's all about how good you are and understanding exactly what's in the hand of your opponent. If he doesn't have anything for those spear goblins, the damage can actually be very, very devastating to those RGs and those mega minions and everything.
So we go minor defensively here to kind of tank for that RG E-bar push on the left-hand side. Spear Goblins up high along with that Firecracker. Now we get a healthy set of E-barbs down, and this is a big part of using the Elite Barbarians in this current meta, is if your opponent uses their Elite Barbarians and you can defend adequately with cheap cards to create positive trades and then get your E-barbs down at the end of that exchange, it demands a lot out of your opponent.
Yeah, and I really don't like that miner though. The miner on the left side made no sense to me. Elite Barbarians, we're gonna go into Elite Barbarians. You want to stay on one lane here. You're not split pushing because he has Fisherman. You can split lane push when there is no Fisherman and no NATO, but every time there's NATO and Fisherman, you don't want to be splitting your damage because it can get mitigated very easily.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a really important point you make, because these RGs, the second they get a shot in, he's no longer going to be in the lead. And then talking about Burkane here specifically. So there we go. Miner to the right-hand side, to the front of the tower. There's a Fish Boy and a Mother Witch coming out. Overspend on defense. Cycle working in favor here of Burkane. He's got 2 more cards, 3 more cards out, so he should be able to play his Mortar and then start to defend and get another Miner down.
Yeah, and here he's going to need to road delivery the right. Oh, yeah, I saw those Elite Barbarians coming in a mile away. I'm surprised he didn't, but look at the Spear Goblin damage. That is the reason that doesn't hit, and that is so smart out of him. I love the Spear Goblins play.
There we go. Firecracker to the front, Miner to the back. E-Barb connects on the left-hand side, and just like that, you see that Burkane can change lanes again as a 500 damage favor goes to that left-hand side. He fireballs only that Mother Witch, and that could be trouble, Eric.
Yeah, that is very bad, in the sense that he missed a little bit of the interaction there on, you cannot kite both Elite Barbarians. You need to know that when you're playing this type of deck and this type of matchup. Those Elite Barbarians, they have this line of sight issue where the one on the right does not actually get caught into the kite of the Ice Golem, and it forced out so much extra defense out of him.
Great job there with Burkane again, getting that mortar just low enough. Fisherman cannot do what he needs to do. He walks over to those E-Barbs, and Aslan is not yet eliminated from the competition. He has one more chance only today to stay alive, but Burkane, a man that you and I have not seen much of in the last couple weeks, ends up playing a very nice opening set to our international finals.
Those last 2 matchups, man, they were unbeatable for Aslan. As soon as I saw that last matchup is Mortar versus RG with those Elite Barbarians at delivery, it's not that Aslan played bad. He played well, but there's just nothing you can do. It's the same thing as if he was running E-Giant. You can pray for a mistake that we have seen. Look, we have seen mistakes, but Burkane just didn't make any.
Yeah, the other thing that Burkane did really great in that last game, when you talk about matchup, was, you know, you and I were speaking about how he could get those mortars out early and cycle them and just get them on the board. You get 2 mortars down if he needed to defend that Royal Giant. But what was really great is he recognized early on, all right, I have a fast cycle. His biggest threat is obviously the Royal Giant, which I always have the mortar for. The other biggest threat are those Elite Barbarians and the Mother Witch. So Fireball always goes to the Mother Witch, but those E-Barbs were always taken care of for so cheap. In this matchup, you saw with the Skarmy, and in this one, it was all about the Ice Golem plus the Firecracker and the Spear Goblins, and then you turn that defense into your counter push. Miner on one side, E-Barbs if you want on the other. GG, well played.
Look, I'm gonna give him props. Maybe he expected this RG to come out. Maybe he did his analysis, and that's the reason he picked this. So at the end of the day, look, props to him. It's not all about, oh, he wanted 100-0 on 90-10. He got those matchups. He chose these decks for a reason, and good job to him. It's the reason why he didn't have to go into those decider matches, and it might be the reason why he goes straight into those quarterfinals and finals later on this week as well.
What I thought was really great was that, you know, it looked like Burkhan was struggling after the first 3 games, but then, as you're talking about, he figures out the matchups, he changes decks, which I didn't think he was going to do. I thought he was going to just run that Mortar deck so he could find a good matchup again, but he goes, you know what? No, he already knows this Mortar deck. Let's go to a deck that he does not know. He does not know what to expect. That's Skarmy, the great equalizer when you talk about Elite Barbarians, the +3 trade every single time, a +5 trade when you talk about the log coming in behind it. And even in that moment, Aslan called it a good game. So we go the distance in our first set of the day. All 5 games in the books there for Burkhan and Aslan, who Burkhan comes out just 1 game ahead, 3-2. And of course, now we have to go to Hugo and in Thrill, our next set of the day, where Aslan will sit back and wait to see who he will face, as of course will Burkhan. And while you and I are getting ready for this matchup, let's get a few words from our players. make it happen. And then, of course, on the other side of it with Inthril, we saw that kind of we've been calling it a no win condition deck, but it's really more of just like a bridge spam deck without like a straight tower attacking card. But when you talk about the Mother Witch, when you talk about the Bandit and the E-Barbs, those cards really do feel like win conditions at this point in the game, especially when Mother Witch gets value. I'm very curious to see what these guys do in this matchup, because the other thing I noticed when looking at those videos, Eric, was that their win conditions and the decks they chose were kind of all over the place, which I think is a very good thing when you talk about Gamestars.
Yeah, the only difference I would say, and just to touch on the bridge spam deck, is we say no win condition deck because we're so used to having a clear through his bracket, and that's a big one up for Hugo not having that much analysis on him.
Yeah, it's this weird kind of double-sided coin where you talk about, is it better to have been able to sit back and analyze your opponents for the last 3 weeks, or do you feel a little rusty because you haven't played in almost a month? So two very different stories in every single matchup that we're going to see in this group stage, because we're going to start off with a guy that made it all the way through from his first day of competition to, in every single group stage, the person in 4th place who was just battling for their lives a week and a half ago. So Hugo at the top of your screen, Inthril at the bottom, and a P.E.K.K.A out early.
I love to see P.E.K.K.A out early. I love P.E.K.K.A. I'm not really sure the whole bar barrel ordeal with it. I'm not usually used with Zap or with Log or Snowball, but bar barrel Ram Rider P.E.K.K.A is something new to me, at least.
Man, this is going to be a brutal push, too. That Ram Rider comes on through. The Barbarian cleans up those Spear Goblins. Musketeer goes off the board, and actually very, very well defended with a healthy enough Valkyrie on the board. 2 elixir up is Inthril, but not bad there for Hugo.
If that P.E.K.K.A did get a swing onto the Valk, I would say that Inthril is in a great position, but the fact that it was so healthy and forced out something else, they're basically even overall. I do not like that Fireball, though, because all that elixir that you just had saved up, you gave it back to Inthril, and for what, right? For just a Fireball damage.
And Inthril recognizes that elixir lead. He gets the P.E.K.K.A down in the back, and we see Hugo try to create a little bit of space or some damage with those Spear Goblins, but because Inthril is in the damage lead, in the elixir lead, he's very happy to get that Bandit in, and now we have a Miner out of cycle.
Yeah, and now it's all about that defense. Hugo's gonna have to pull something out of the bag here. The Valk is a great defensive card for this push, and there it is. Spear Goblins coming down a little bit late, and that mortar gets taken care of, but overall, nice Mother Witch there, though.
Yeah, Mother Witch almost able to get some more value. Yeah, not quite what Inthril wanted to put together on that push, but very, very close. And as you said, that Valkyrie doing a really good job of playing defense on that Dark Prince, and of course, that P.E.K.K.A. Spear Goblins were just a half second late, would have made that whole thing a lot cleaner for Hugo.
I'm very worried for Hugo once he gets into that double elixir, and if he cannot clean it up before he gets into triple elixir, I want to see how he defends the full triple elixir Ram Rider split lane pressure with all this that he has. The one thing I will say is he got very, very fortunate, lucky, whatever you want to say, that there is no Zap in this deck, because if there was Zap for those Spear Goblins in hand, it would be a lot of trouble for him.
Yeah, but still in a ton of trouble is Hugo, who is just giving away Some of the joys of remote broadcasting in 2020 carrying over to 2021. How are you guys? Welcome back to Game Stars League, and we are in our second set of the day between, of course, Thrill and the man who he took down in game number 1, Hugo. And we'll be going back to game number 2, as of course we had issues with our internet broadcast wise, but the players did get to play through that very first game. Eric, it's kind of tough to talk about what happened in that game because we didn't get to see a lot of it, but we did see a mortar and a Valkyrie and a Musketeer going up against what looked like some version of bridge spam.
Yeah, I think we saw just enough to realize, okay, Inthrill is winning this match. He got a lot of damage right before that went down, and on top of that, he was up on Elixir. There was no way that Hugo was going to get enough damage before the game was over, in my opinion. So we saw just enough to realize, look, the deck choice was weird. Yes. Did it work? Yes. And that's all that matters.
Yeah, you know, weird deck choice. You talked about Mega Knight plus Ram Rider with Dark Prince, something that feels like it's like a year old now. But you know what? With great spell value coming in, you saw the fireballs getting on top of the mortars, musketeers, and princesses. The ability to get that bar barrel on top of spear goblins was something that you had actually highlighted in the previous set, which is just like, you got to protect those spear goblins. You got to make them really, really hard to get to. If you recognize that your opponent does not have a poison or something or a snowball, then just play them far back, make them impossible to get to, and let them get all of that beautiful damage in.
Not only that, but when you're going up against Ram Rider, we know that it targets one at a time, and that buys you more time for your Valk to get in position, for your other troops to actually be able to move and not get frozen. That is 3 more targets that the Ram Rider is distracted with. So it's not only value on the offensive defense, where you're getting damage, but it's also on the fact that it's distracting, it's buying you more time. And he put those spear goblins in bar barrel range and basically got wiped off the board. It also did damage to the mortar. Just need to be a little bit more careful.
So here we go. Game number 2, game number 1 going to Inthrill, who is at the bottom of your screen. Hugo at the top of your screen going back to what could be a mortar miner deck, and a bomber comes out defensively.
Bomber, bar barrel, this could still be E-Giant, no longer E-Giant. There goes that, and here is the Ice Golem coming down with the Magic Archer, and weird choices on decks here for Inthrill. Definitely coming out some surprises.
Yeah, I mean, talk about not being able to strategize against your opponent or put them on a specific deck, and Inthrill just really doing that in spades today.
Yeah, and Musketeer is a good, nice little counter there, but a nice fireball, and it seemed like he expected the fireball to be coming in as well, so not too shabby there from Hugo, really predicting what that offense was going to look like, takes care of everything, and Elixir is looking the same for both.
Yeah, pretty much dead even in Elixir, with a bit of damage in favor here of Hugo, as we're about to get into our second minute of gameplay, and still a bit of technical issue on our side, it does feel, but we're trying to do our best as that Magic Archer is cleaned up off the board with a fireball.
And not the push where you never see someone say, oh no, Ice Golem bomber push, be careful. Definitely something that I'm not used to seeing, and it seems like with the plan, and that plan's name is the Ram Rider.
Yeah, I mean, a really, really surprising appearance here from that lady riding that Ram 2 games in a row. And I think maybe in our prior weeks of competition, maybe only saw her twice in the entire competition. So now getting her twice in one day from the same competitor, I wonder what it is about the current meta that makes him very excited about the Ram Rider.
Yeah, and I'm still not really sure what it is. But we are playing against everyone. You need to make sure that you match up well. Yeah. So, yeah, and I mean, just right now we're just seeing a little bit of a rotation, not too much, nothing special here. A nice value out of that Magic Archer, and it is one of those cards that you want to get that value. Forced out the fireball that almost hits the bomber, but just no.
Yeah, that would have been a big time fireball there, but Inthrill not going to let that happen. Take 3 remaining on his bottom right hand tower as he's trying to build these Ram Rider pushes from the back now. And I gotta say, it feels like the odd composition here is having a bit of struggle when you talk about synergy. Defensively, he seems to be doing okay, but putting together actually effective offensive pushes have been really difficult for Inthrill.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit confused on the deck. The Inferno Dragon, I'm not really sure where that fits in. I'm trying to find the placement, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense. I would much rather have an Infernal Tower at that point, maybe a building, something to, you know, really capture or if you were playing up against a tank, because there's just not enough to hold back, and I think that's what's really causing some struggles here for him.
Yeah, you know, the Inferno Dragon is a great tank killer for sky and ground, but you talked about the E-Barbs being there, being helped out with the Magic Archer, and it just, yeah, there's just something a little off about this deck, and I think that's why he's struggling to get damage on tower.
Yeah, I'm seeing, I understand a little bit what he's going for, but it's just not, I think ideally it's not what you're looking for when you actually think about when you think of a deck and when it's actually played are two very different things, and I think that's a little bit of what he got caught up in. The idea is great, but not the execution of it.
And somehow Hugo is able to hang on thread defensively. I thought he was going to get overwhelmed there, but a mortar shot does come in. E-Barbs are back down. A great fireball to help clean up those Spear Goblins, doing exactly what you and I have been highlighting. So he does get a nice piercing Magic Archer shot in, but a very aggressive push.
Yeah, and he's hitting that desperation mode, knowing that there's only 19 seconds left. A nice Magic Archer connection, but it gets logged back. Very, very smart play out of him. And at this point, it's all or nothing. He needs to fireball that mortar, because if not, it just won't get there in time. No fireball onto the mortar. He decides to go straight onto tower. And that is, it didn't work out the way I'm sure he thought it was going to.
Yeah, well, now he has to win with this deck, though, so he's going to have to figure out a way to put those pushes together, and I think a big part of it was maybe getting over-aggressive early on. Giving a lot of Valkyrie value was in Thrill throughout the entire game. Valkyrie and ball value. He made it very for Hugo to go Valkyrie up at the bridge and put a mortar right next to it, kind of everything right where he wanted, get all that splash damage in, and it got really, really close there for a second, but really nice defense from Hugo.
Yeah, Hugo, I think it's the opposite of what we saw in game number 1. In that first game, it seemed like he gave up too much value. The mortar placements weren't the right ones. He went up high too much. This time, it seemed like he really, you know, okay, I'm shaking off that rust. I'm back in it. I'm Hugo again. And we saw perfect defenses throughout. The only thing that I would say is maybe he let the Magic Archer connect a couple more times than it should have, but he just logged it away. Quick response, and overall, very nice play.
One thing I'd like to see from Hugo game is a bit of an adjustment and maybe going to his second choice on how to defend. Because what we saw a lot from Inthrill in games 1 and 2 is that he is starting to predict what Hugo is doing. And luckily in that last game, he had a pretty good matchup with the Mortar and those Spear Goblins to help things out, to keep that Inferno Dragon at bay with the E-Barbs. But he did catch that Mortar a couple times with the Bar Barrel up high. And he did catch that Musketeer with the Fireball, but we saw Hugo adjust and have the Spear Goblins locked, loaded, and ready to go. So I would love to see a bit of a, you know, maybe a hesitation on Hugo's defense, and he goes to his second option here in game number 3.
Yeah, let's see what's gonna happen. Mortar again, and is Hugo pulling the Predator strat? Let's go mortar, and then let me think of the third deck. Oh yeah, mortar again. If it is, I mean, Inthrill might not be able to actually win with this deck ever.
I was just gonna say, I mean, might not always work out for previous competitors, but if this is a deck that Inthrill has to win with, which we know he does, and you saw how he defended last time, right now it looks like he's gonna have probably the Skeletons instead of the Spear Goblins, but otherwise it's gonna be basically the same thing. I'll be curious to see this flop free, and there's the Fireball. So gonna probably be a change of his tank on the ground, but Inthrill already thinking about how he's going to break through.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of how he's gonna break through also, and it just seems rough because this cycle is even faster with the Skellies instead. The Ice Golem coming in. The only positive I see is that obviously the Valk does a lot of damage, and when you take out the Valk and you put it in Ice Golem, you have a little bit less DPS for that Ram Rider, but it still cycles so quickly that he's gonna struggle with overall on actually getting to tower.
Yeah, that's the exact thing that I was kind of thinking of as well, Eric, is just the single target DP loses, or not even the splash damage that he got from that Valkyrie, being able to kind of get everything locked up at the bridge, get good damage in on top of magic archers that were played super aggressively. He does lose that. Cycle does go up, so he's going to have to work on getting 2 tiers down regularly when you talk about getting into double and triple.
Yeah, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because that Valk takes care of these elite barbarians. Now what do? You cannot kite them. We know that if you kite them, it has to be like that. But look, that is not the kite that you want. Now everything is on one lane. That musketeer is getting a lot of value, but look how much he had to spend just to get that defense. And over time, when this hits triple elixir, it's gonna be very, very complicated for him.
Yeah, and that's a really good thing that you pointed out for people watching, in case they were looking at it and go, well, look, I mean, he defended well and he didn't take any damage. He's still in the damage lead, but, you know, I think he lost about a free elixir there, and it's going to become harder and harder to gain that ground as you move into, as you said, double and triple. And that Ram Rider almost connects on the left-hand side, but as we get into double, deeper into double and triple, those Ram Riders will connect.
And every time he goes down a little bit more on elixir, and you see it over and over again, and he got very, very lucky that that Ram Rider did not connect. But last time he was even on elixir. The time before that, he was up 3 elixir. Now he was down 2 elixir. If the cycle continues like this, it's going to be impossible for him to ultimately defend at the end of this game.
So Magic are taking off the board there as that mortar bomber going to do great work against those E-barbs for Traven. Now you see the E-barbs going out opposite lane, and that's a bit of what I was saying before. And now we see the overwhelm coming in. A mortar will come down last second.
Elite barb on tower, 2 hits is more than a miner does in 15 hits, so you got to be very careful with that. And the Ram Rider connection, and the bomber's alive. And look at the elixir as well. It's what I was saying. Every time it just gets worse.
And Inthrill just needs to reset in the back. Don't change up what you've been doing. Cool. Now Miner's going to go to the right-hand side because you're making him pick and choose between towers. That's exactly what you want. Ram Rider in on the left hand, and we'll see what he does. Yeah, high magic archer maybe.
No magic archer is very odd to me, especially seeing as that's the tower with the most damage taken. That could have been at least 4 magic archer hits. I'm not really sure why he decided not to go with it, but overall, still in a good position. Look, that elixir looks worse every single time, and I'm worried for him.
Well, Inthrill this time around did something different, and he's changing up what was working. So now he's going to what was working. Rustic Archer up high, and now is trying to get the Ram Rider in second.
Yeah, the only problem with this for me was that he take the elite barbarians with the magic archer. You want that magic archer to stay up. It's what causes so much extra defense. He only has the skellies and the ice golem, which don't do anything to it. You need it to always be up. Force out that fireball onto the magic archer so that he cannot do what he just did.
And there you go. Magic archer up high does get 1 piercing shot in. Miner goes in. 1406, 1367 at the top. Barb Barrel goes in. Fireball on both sides, Eric. 1195 to 1114.
Wow. Wow, that is rough. If he would have just caught that miner, I think that would have been game over, but that's unfortunate for him. I think it was a little bit of hesitation on the magic archer. When those elite barbarians were there, you were up on elixir. That was 4 hits, and you saw how close they got at the end. If those 4 hits came in, that would have been game over.
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see him kind of change up what had been working so well. You saw him have to kind of play out a cycle there later on, where he had to get the ice golem up high, the E-barbs down low to catch the miner, and even just that small changed up the way that he was defending, and it helped his opponent get those E-barbs back down more rapidly and make it harder and harder to defend for Inthrill. So struggling with this deck, this time by less than 100 HP. Was that Inthrill's last chance to maybe get a set?
If I see another mortar deck, I don't see him winning. I think this was the best matchup. This is the one matchup where Hugo did not have DPS. He had no way of getting anything off the board other than those mortars, fireballs, and then just cycling everything he can. And if you cannot beat that, then what are you going to actually beat with this deck? Will Inthrill, say, let me get to that last game? Or is he going to go all out and try and, finally get that game out of the way? I'm not sure. I don't really love the deck, and it's not the first time one deck causes problems for someone.
Yeah, that's happened a lot here at GameStars League, and when you talk about that deck and kind of the that it had, the bomber to help clean up the skeleton, to help clean up those skellies, which are really the biggest distraction card in game and at play. And Intro's going to go back to the well here as we see the bomber coming out early. Hugo with the flying machine.
I hope for his sake this is not a recruits deck, and it is actually either one just doesn't work for him, if it's a recruit or the Mega Knight version. I'm not really sure what he's expecting here, but it's gonna be rough for him, especially when you already used that fireball. Fireball could come in here, decides not to, and just gonna play it safe, but that's still damage already.
Yeah, damage it on the right-hand side. Ebarb's cleaning up those Royal Hogs. Inthrill thinking about the situation that he's in. He picks up game number 1, drops 2 and 3, and now Hugo going to go Mega Knight on top of those Elite Barbarians. Very interesting when you talk about this matchup and this deck specifically. I'd love to kind of pick the brain of Inthrill and see, you know, what he was expecting and kind of where it went wrong.
Yeah, and that fireball onto the magic archer was great. Good kite here. I do think he is a little bit fortunate that this is the Mega Knight version and it's not the Royal Recruits, because the Royal Recruits would have been terrible for those Elite Barbarians to deal with. The Elite Barbarians can actually do a lot of damage onto the Mega Knight, especially if it's tanked for by the Ice Golem. So got a little bit fortunate there, but still going to be tough for him.
Yeah, and that is something that players do, is get that Ice Golem down first, then you get the E-Barbs to surround the Mega Knight, then you have a little bit of a tank for those E-Barbs as they cross the bridge, and of course very little damage goes in on them.
One swing, there's the, well, not swing, one cast, one, I don't know what it is, one Harry Potter, whatever you want to call it, it still gets the damage. And it's looking rough because he's usually been playing at an advantage and not been able to win. Now he's at a disadvantage, and those Zappies coming in for an Inferno Dragon is not what you want to see either.
Go into the left-hand side, E-Barbs in kind out of response. You get the bomber in on top to help clean up and get a little bit of splash damage in, but not a whole lot.
Yeah, that is not what you want to see if you are Inthrill. The last card being Elite Barbarians of his own doesn't find it very flattering in my opinion. And there he has to fireball the flying machine, which means that the Zappies move on through for free, and it's rough, man. This is rough for him.
Yeah, this is really, really tough here. And now you see the, you know, obviously Hugs can come back down, but Hugo doesn't need to do that. He goes instead, let me reset with the Mega Knight back here, and now he can create great dual lane pressure if necessary. That flying machine, also a nuisance, as it always is, and we'll see just how Inthrill is going to defend this left-hand side, and hopefully for his sake, turn it into some offense.
Yeah, and he needs to fireball that Inferno Dragon at some point. He Zappies, and they do actually connect in time. That should be it, in my opinion. That should be game over. That flying machine, even though it's not connecting, it's not being targeted by the Princess Tower, and it's just all downhill from here. He missed one as well.
Yeah, he missed one. Fireball does come in, but you know that just the sellout push was there for Inthrill to defend, and he couldn't hit all of it. He only missed Royal Hog, so it ends up being a pretty good fireball, but now damage done. 8:54 remains. Flying Machine E-Barbs coming across the bridge. A minute and 25 seconds left, and 1,500 damage on that top right-hand side. Inthrill starting to see the writing on the wall.
Yeah, and it's just now it's, I mean, if I'm Hugo, I'm going turtle mode. I'm getting in my shell, and I am not forcing anything. This is all I need to do is have Mega Knight in cycle every single time when that Ram Rider comes out, and keep my Elite Barbarians for his Elite Barbarians, and there should be no way I lose this match, right? I have Fireball, I have everything I need.
Yep, and there you go, cycling in the back. E-Barb's not out, but the Mega Knight does come down there at the bridge. Great fireball value there for it, but now those Royal Hogs come down the left-hand side. Healthy Mega Knight leaps on the right, does take out the bomber, and now it's a tower race here, with Hugo deciding which one goes down first.
And it's going to be that right-hand side, but he needs to be careful. If that didn't get the last swing, Inthrill might have actually put some pressure on there. There was a lot coming through.
Yeah, so just one deck can be your demise here in GameStars League. You get 3 decks to bring to competition, but you have to win with all 3 of them. All 3 of your decks have to have that synergy. You have to know the playstyle. You have to, and of course, when you're in matchups, you have to recognize what you need to do. I just don't know what you do in any of those games other than the second time it was out. Didn't have the Valkyrie to deal with, and it was just those skeletons. It felt like that was the time when Inthril had to pick up a game.
And those are those moments, remember we spoke about early on, when do you take the risk? You got to take those risks with the Magic Archer. If you're going to risk it with a deck like that and you finally have a chance to win, you got to go all in. You cannot hesitate, and it cost him the whole set. That is the one time you actually had an opportunity to win. And now thinking into the next match, I'm pretty sure this deck does not fare well against the RG from Aslan, and if I'm not mistaken, Aslan also had a mortar of his own, so this could be the reason why we see Inthril have a tough time. Just one deck.
Yeah, how much that Rare Matter actually can do, but this one deck just not having any success. And let's kind of go back to what we're talking about and what we're just seeing right there is this Magic Archer. You don't tornado in hand to create offensive opportunities, then you have to take advantage of your opponent misplaying units. And if they're going to give you that piercing shot through to the tower, then you've got to be a bit more aggressive. And that was something that I think was really missing here from Inthril. We saw Jupiter King turn that Magic Archer into one of the most deadly win conditions in the game with the help of Tornado. But again, you talk about where it's placed here, and there's just no opportunity to get that piercing damage in.
I mean, that Magic Archer is the reason I can sit here and say I'm a world champion. Surge took the risk. It paid off. So I know the damage it could do. I also have been on the bad side of it playing against someone like OP Sam, Chop Cham, whatever you want to call him. He made it so difficult, and it's all about taking those risks. He always took advantage of that bridge. As soon as he saw something that was able to line up, you knew Sam was going to line that up, get that extra damage, and that's why he was one of the best in the world with it. Inthril, if you get another opportunity, go for it, my friend, especially when you're that close to the end of the match.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a really important thing to kind of hold on to is don't do it in single, right? It's one of your best defensive cards in the game. And if you see a really big opportunity, like a cycled in the back that's like a golem or something incredibly slow like Ice Golem, and you could just get a ton of piercing damage in, then maybe. But when you're talking second and third elixir, when you're talking about double and triple, you have to be so much more aggressive with those Magic Archers. So we'll see if Inthril does that in his next set. Of course, our winners on the day thus far, Burkan and Hugo. One of them will make it on through, and of course at the bottom of your screen you see Aslan and Inthril. One of them will play the loser, Burkan and Hugo. The winner of Burkan and Hugo will be our first place from Group A, and of course the winner of that decider match will be second place. Every single day this week that we have a group stage, 2 players will move on and 2 players will be eliminated.
Yeah, and yeah, no time to recover anymore. Child's play is over. It's finals week, so if you lose, you got to go right back into it, and that is where the best players, really usually prevail. So I want to see Aslan, who has generally been very good. He has not had to face a lot of those elimination matches. How does he react to it? It's going to be something to see. And Inthril, who's just come out of a loss.
Yeah, and when you think about these decks and how they stack up, obviously Inthril is one of the ones that we think about, and it's like, man, how on earth is that going to fare? How is that deck going to brew when you talk about going up against someone like Aslan, who may have not had a win in his first set, as you guys can see here on the screen, but he does have a very great standing of situational matchups and what to do, and he doesn't usually overextend himself much. Last time you saw, kind of got painted into a corner in regards to matchup by Burkan. Off to him, that switch of the Lava Hound deck was a really integral part of that first set. And now we're going to go to our elimination bracket, Eric. We're going to wait for our winners. We're going to give them a moment, and we're going to go to Aslan versus Inthril. And based off what you've seen today, I personally have more faith in Aslan only because of that one deck from Inthril. I feel like if anyone had that one deck, I'd probably give them the disadvantage. I just need to see him win with it.
I could not agree more. I would love to sit here and make it more interesting for the viewers and be like, no, you know what? I think Inthril is taking this, but I saw the same deck you saw. I saw him play it 3 times. I saw the same results. And Aslan he has good matchups against that specific deck as well. So not only did he have time to cool off, not only does he have good matchups against it, but Inthril just lost 3 times in a row after starting off winning and has to play again with that deck. It is so hard mentally. and not only mentally, but actually the deck itself.
So if you're in 3 and you've just lost with it 3 times in a row,
I'm not touching
do you
it.
just go, yeah, you don't touch it,
I'm not
right? Do you
touching
not
it.
touch it until you have to, until you're forced to play it in maybe a game 5 situation or in elimination game situation where you've won with your decks? You just shelve it for.
Yeah, coming from a spectator or coach's perspective, a lot easier said than done. I'm not touching it. I need to get back into my groove. I need to get a win on the board. I need to mentally reset. If I'm putting myself in a player's perspective, I usually go right back into it and say, no, I can win, but that ends up being a bigger tilt. It's not worth it. Get back in the groove. If I'm his coach, I'm sitting down saying, forget about that deck. Show what you can do, prove to yourself you can get some matches on the board, and then go back to it. And look, if you lose 3 times with it again, then so be it, but at least give yourself the chance to win the set.
And those 2 perspectives are really important when you talk about Clash Royale. Obviously, every single person in this competition is better than I am, but I will see things regularly, as will you, where you're like, well, why not? There's a better option. This is an overspend. You need to save for whatever it is. That perspective of being in the moment, as opposed to as a commentator and as a spectator, you're able to see the eye view of certain situations. And I really think that's an important thing. And I agree. I think let your ego go, let your pride go, put the deck on the back for a couple times, get those wins back out, get that confidence. You saw how well he played for at least half of game 1. It really did work out for him. I think you go right back to that deck, you go right back to winning, and then hope you can find yourself in a better matchup down the line.
I agree, and we know that P.E.K.K.A. Ram Rider deck goes well against an RG deck. If that P.E.K.K.A. gets Fisherman, you still have the Ram Rider defensive as well, and it seems like he is going to be going to that deck. So overall, it's not bad at all. Aslan, I'm sure he's disappointed he's not going up against that Ram Rider deck. He would have loved to see it first off and get an advantage. But let's see. I'm really curious to see if Intro can recover and be there mentally. More than anything, it's that mental game. Clash is so hard once you're down.
I'm trying to remember exactly what deck this was from Aslan. Is this his lava deck, or is this a graveyard? This maybe his graveyard deck?
Yeah, it could be. No, yeah, it could be the MK graveyard. Was it?
I think maybe, yeah. I think that's what this looks like so far. We see Fireball, Snowball out, which makes sense. And then that Goblin Cage, he just cycles that when he doesn't have any other better options. It's always good to get that Cage on the board and help deal with this Bandit.
Yeah, and the only thing I will say is that he does have Fisherman for all the Ram Riders and the Cage as well, and the and Ewiz. I don't think this matchup, if Aslan loses this, he can't be frustrated. You know that if I'm in Aslan's head right now, the way to win this set is, okay, this one does well against that deck he lost with. Next up, let's see what my next deck is. Okay, I have this one. This goes well as well. And as long as your decks keep matching up well against that last deck of Intro, you need to stay calm. Do not put too much pressure on yourself.
Exactly. I think if you kind of hold on to no matter what, you're going to run into great matchups against the deck that your opponent struggled with. Don't let these early games in the set get to you mentally. Just sit back and wait until you're pretty with what should be a horrible matchup for your opponent. And then in game 3, I mean, you talked about just the most like on the nose things with the Ewiz, the Fisherman, and the Goblin Cage. Don't forget that Snowball and Fireball can both knock that Ram Rider back. So if I'm Aslan, I almost don't even want to win with it right now because I would love to have it later on.
Mega Knight just for added salt to the wound, or you know, if everything else doesn't knock it back enough, here's a Mega Knight for you as well. Oh, and you can't defend the graveyard with that deck either. So I mean, this whole deck is just a full counter to it. So no matter what happens, which I think he's gonna end up winning anyway with it,
right?
This is just rough, and if you go down already 0-1, it's not looking great.
So here we go. First Ram Rider out from Intrill, and he's only found that first opportunity as there's only 2 minutes left here in the match. 3 minutes already ticked on by. There's the Bandit going to the Ewiz. Not even sure if the Ewiz was necessary. The Bandit had already targeted the Mega Knight, but better safe than sorry.
Yeah, at this point, you just want to secure the match, so I don't mind it at all. And I'm not really sure about that snowball, what the point of it was. He needs to be very careful, though, because as good of a matchup as you have, you still need to win it. We've seen so many players get carried away, and this is exactly what is happening here. Yeah, and look how much damage that retargeted, and he got a little sloppy with it, and it might have been just him being a little bit overconfident.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. When you sit there and you go, oh man, I've got 6 responses for this card, and you play 5 of them, and your 6th response is 7 elixir, that's the problem. That's when you start thinking. That's when you've been playing against log bait perfectly for 4 minutes, and then you start using your log carelessly.
Yeah.
Because you're ahead, and then 2 goblin barrels connect, and you lose the game with the rocket. So this is the problem that Aslan has put himself into. Now, like we said, the great thing he knows is this deck will match up really, really well against that other red deck that we saw in the full struggle with, but this was still a Ram Rider deck. Those responses were still just as effective in this matchup, and you're going to see a win going in favor of Infer.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, if you put this match and you show the first half of it to someone and then you show the second half, there is no way anyone believes you that it's the same player playing both, because I don't know what happened. He completely lost it. He got out of cycle. Wow, that P.E.K.K.A was. This
is actually getting really close, Eric.
Yeah,
and there it is.
He was able to defend, but that P.E.K.K.A came down a little bit too late, and that Mother Witch got taken off the board. And Aslan has to be very, very disappointed, I'm sure, in the fact that the match is basically secured, and that snowball was really what spiraled everything.
Yeah, that was the moment. You even said it before everything had kind of cascaded downhill for Aslan. You're like, I'm not sure about that snowball. I think the idea to reset the Electro Wizard to get the Mega Knight to leap on top and then get the Mega Knight to leap on tower, but yeah, you don't need to do all that, right?
I mean,
that's like trying to get too fancy.
All that is great, assuming your opponent has 0 elixir, but he has 8 elixir and a P.E.K.K.A in hand. He's not just gonna let that E-Wiz go down. So that was my biggest issue. Why are you snowballing? You know he has P.E.K.K.A. You know he's not just gonna let everything connect on tower. These are pro players in their own sense. They're playing for the big money here, and you need to be a lot more careful. On the positive side, that deck is 100,000% counter to Inthrill's other deck.
Yeah, that deck that we saw Inthrill in the last set run back to back to back is gonna struggle, but maybe he goes to a different deck in game number 2, or maybe he goes to the deck he struggled with, hoping that Aslan runs something else. Either way, Aslan gonna need to reset here and think about what went wrong in that last game and maybe slow things down just a bit.
And if he went to it, I'm really not about going back to it until you have that 2-game lead, because there's no point. If you do win, great, you still have to close out the set, but if you lose, you go back into that mental hole of how am I gonna win with this. And that is one way, the missed fireball.
Yeah, and you be looking a little tilted. He's still able to kind of smile and laugh that one off, but definitely not something he wants to continue as we move forward.
Is that gonna activate? Oh, it does not. The placement was a little bit too far to the right. You need to place that a little bit closer. That would have actually activated the King Tower. A little bit unfortunate, but overall in this match, it's not that necessary. And Inferno Dragon gonna get a lot of value here.
Yeah, Inferno just sizzling that Mega Knight away as Aslan's about to tick to 9 here. Inthrill about to tick to 7, and he sends in this Ram Rider. And this is one of the things that Aslan needs to get less comfortable doing, which is defending one push with a Goblin Cage plus E-Wiz played at the exact or close to the same time. That's how he lost the last game, and it's just something that he needs to be a little bit more of. You know, those are 2 of your best responses to the Ram Rider, and in this case it was a Ram Rider plus Inferno Dragon push, but the reason he lost the last game was because he defended a non-Ram Rider push with a Goblin plus E-Wiz.
Yeah, and on top of all that, he cannot push anymore. Now he has to wait another full cycle because he used the snowball and he used the E-Wiz. So if he goes Mega Knight, that Inferno Dragon gets endless amounts of value. You want to just cage. There is a placement in the right, I think it's 2 tiles off your tower, where if you Goblin Cage there, the Ram Rider doesn't get any hits no matter what. So you don't need to be playing that E-Wiz. You don't need to be playing everything together. Like you said, save something for your offense. Make sure you can actually get there yourself.
A very fortunate king activation there from Aslan. I believe his Fisherman lined it up perfectly with the high magic archer. And we see a Mega Knight plus Mother Witch work down the left. And we're pretty much even in damage here. You know, 2166 to 2302.
This is it.
Are the biggest differences we have. And yeah, this is a big push.
That nice fireball out of him though. And it goes back to exactly what you were saying. Too much value. Why are you playing a Mother Witch with an E-Wiz? You know it's gonna get fireballed. Mitigate the amount of value that you're giving him. That cannot keep happening, because slowly but surely he's losing control of this game. And if Inthril wins with this deck, I'm telling you, there is no way he loses this set.
Yeah, and just to remind you guys, this is a double elimination bracket. This is an elimination. One of these guys is going to continue on to battle for over $30,000 in prize money. The other one is going to go home. That's it. They're done. Their GameStars League career is over, at least for this season. So Inthril making it look really good right now with a deck that he has struggled a lot with. And I guess when I say looking good, he's just not playing poorly with it, because he's really struggled with this deck thus far. Now maybe gonna make that Magic Archer a bit of a factor.
Yeah, I hope he does. I think that is going to be the difference maker here. And it's been the difference maker in so many decks of this style. You always see someone, in this case, it would be Aslan, you know, make that face of no, why now, when that Magic Archer connects and you can't do anything about it. And it's going to be all about this. Can you defend this? If you can, which he is defending because that tower actually got targeted onto the graveyard and not the Mega Knight, he has a real shot at winning this.
Yeah, that was a really unfortunate interaction there for Aslan. Now we see that cage come down for Fireball and get right on top of the cage. Ram Rider, though, takes that Mega Knight damage. Bomber plus Barb connect left-hand side to give the lead in favor of Inthril. 1333 to 1668, but those skeletons are piling up very quickly. Favor back in Aslan's court.
GG.
As that goes down. Yeah, that is way too low.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw that bomber hit as it was getting Fisherman, and it killed the Fisherman. That was the greatest bomber of all time, without a doubt. But still, at the end of the day, this deck cannot catch a break.
Oh, here we are once again, my friend. Oh, and I believe 4 now with this deck. Inthril has picked up games on either side of it. You know, starting both of his sets off great with the deck that he does have a little bit more success with, but keeps coming back to this deck and he keeps failing with it. He has a different, he has another deck, he has another option. We just need to see that maybe now.
I hope it's not a variation of this deck, because that's the only thing I can think of is the reason why he's not switching to it or not wanting to play it. If it's a variation of this same deck, then he's in a lot of trouble. But if not, why are you hesitating to put this on the back burner? Take that lead of the set and then force a mistake. Aslan has not been playing perfect Clash, and it seems like if you can just pin him up against the ropes, he might make enough mistakes to where you can actually win with this.
I couldn't agree more. I think you need to lean into the mental game right now if you are struggling with the actual game and the cards that are in your hand. And the cards on the right-hand side of your screen have been the Achilles heel for Inthril as he finds himself even up as we go into game number 3. And for his sake, let's hope he changes up the card, and it looks like he is.
Yeah, this is it. This is he's gonna show us his last deck, and I'm gonna make a comment of, okay, maybe now I understand, or I will say good switch to this deck. We're about to find out, and it seems like it could be an RG deck.
Yeah, it does look like a deck. We've seen competitors come out with it already today, if that is what we're seeing, and maybe you're gonna come down to help support this fish boy.
It seems like we might be getting a mirror match here, which I'm very curious to see. And seeing as it's the RG deck, I'm a little bit curious why he hesitated so much on actually pulling this out, because we've talked about it, not only in tournament standard, but in top ladder, this is the go-to deck right now.
Yeah, you see a lot of pros talking about it, about how strong it is, how they've been winning so many matchups with it, how really it does seem to be the most balanced or strongest deck in the meta at the moment. And Aslan getting a bit of a shot at redemption as he struggled with this mirror matchup earlier today. And that was his Fishermans were just not as effective as Burkhan's, and that is a nice push.
This Mega Minion sure is effective, though. That is what, 4 hits, 5 hits out of a Mega Minion, and that is almost game over already.
Yeah, you see that great tankage there by the Mega Minion on the tower. Mother Witch able to get all of her Harry Potters in, as you called them. I do like that. I will be carrying that over to CRL. And we find ourselves with 548 HP remaining on the bottom right-hand tower to 2076 as we tick into double elixir.
And it's incredible to see an RG deck do that much damage without RG ever being played, and it not come out of the Elite Barbarians either. That is one of the most unusual things I have ever seen, taking a tower down with a half-life Mother Witch and a Mega Minion. But it goes to show that if you can defend the right way and force enough elixir, you can actually take tower with anything.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Aslan did, is he put that advantage in his favor. He defended very, very well in that opening interaction, and his Mother Witch got a ton of value. That push into what we're seeing right now. 316 remains on that bottom right-hand tower, and with only 23 seconds remaining in this game, feels like a very, very quick red win.
And he's being very, very smart about it right now. I love what Aslan is doing. If you notice, he's playing the heal spirits on the right, and they're connecting for like 30 or 50 damage every time, but it's getting it into the fireball log range without spending any elixir. He was so smart about that. He did it 2 or 3 times, and just understanding the way Clash should be played. Log and heal spirits slightly going onto that right side, and now no Elite Barbarians.
Yep, no Elite Barbarians, no fish boy to pull either, and then that RG goes right onto the tower, 1 shot in, and I'm glad you called out the heal spirits, because I was going to call out the logs. Very, very intelligent Clash Royale there. Patient, you knew what was going to happen, it was very calculated, and as you said, Eric, that was the best thing to do, because it did what any other opponent would do in that moment, which is just spam. That's all you can do, is just spam, 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 spam. Hopefully something breaks through. Hopefully your opponent messes up one defense, and Aslan not going to let it happen.
Aslan was just I mean, that's the way it should be played, and that is understanding Clash. That is awesome to see. I love to see that out of someone, because like you said, it's not that Intro played it wrong. That's what you have to do. You got to spam the bridge. And once he realized, okay, I only need about 150 to 200 damage to get this into fireball log range, I can do that with heal spirits and logs, which will only cost me 1 elixir at a time, 1 and 2 elixir, and then everything else will just go on defense. That is understanding the matchup, understanding the game scenario, and props to him.
Yeah, so Inthril has 2 decks with a 0% win rate that he has to choose from, and as you can kind of go back to the fabled Magic Archer, Bomber, Raider, Mega Knight deck, and Aslan is gonna go back to the skies.
I wish you luck, my friend. And I wouldn't mind actually watching it win once, you know, just give him 1 win, and then Aslan, if you want to win after that, go for it. But it's so rough, man. And the tombstone is not bad against the Ram Rider either. Like we've talked about, it distracts with all the skellies, so your other troops can do damage as well. I don't know. And
you know, that tombstone is going to have to be used mainly to defend against the Ram Rider, which means that the E-Barbs are going to get more value as well. So you know, there's a couple things that Inthril can kind of look for to kind of hold on to hope for, but it's I feel like we're kind of grasping at straws at this moment.
Yeah, the problem also stands in the fact that he has his own E-Barbs for it, you know. Like if this was just a Barbs deck, I would understand it a little bit more, but the fact that he missed the placement on the tombstone, and that gives a lot of damage. But knowing this deck, it is damage that won't really matter at the end, because it struggles a lot to get further into the game to actually do anything. And the Magic Archer distracted by Baby Dragon. Just so many answers.
Yeah, as the game just goes farther and farther down that rabbit hole of Elixir spawning more quickly, it does feel like this deck that Infidel has just really... I think the thing that he has had the most success with this deck is creating dual lane pressure, but it's just so difficult. Now he's going for it. You can see he's got an Inferno and a Bomber on the left-hand side. He's going to try to go Ram Rider here to the right, but E-Barb's in, and Magic Archer, that's a nice Magic Archer, but a ton of Fireball value.
Yeah, just a little bit of a mistake there on maybe he forgot that this deck had Fireball in it. He expected to see arrows. Not really sure what, but that was just way too much Fireball value there, and good zap out of him to keep that Baby Dragon alive, which should be able to help defend here against those E-Barbs. Overall, Aslan right now is playing this game of...
Wow. Those fireballs are really rough. Fireballs out in both directions.
Yeah.
Success does go in favor of Aslan, and you saw him throw on that last defense. He spent, it was a minor plus E-Barbs to defend, and he dropped his Ice Golem, his Barb Barrel, and his Elite Barbarians that all turned into basically no damage on that right-hand side. So Aslan very, very firmly in control as he gets down.
Yeah, and this is all gonna be about taking care of that Inferno Dragon. He needs to Baby Dragon it, and then he needs to zap it as soon as possible. Make sure to get that down. There it is. A little bit of fortunate, I guess, for Intro here, the fact that the Inferno Dragon locked onto the Ram Rider before his opponent's Inferno Dragon. That kept it alive long enough to actually deal with the lava, and right now it seems like he might actually get a win on the board with this.
He got some really clean defense in there on that last push, and now you can see 1592 and 1728 to a 2014 and 2161 respectively for Aslan and Inthrill, who it looks like he might finally get a win with this deck, but seconds left to play. Crazier things have happened.
Yeah, this Bomber is, I really like this Bomber. That was very smart out of him. He knows he's going to take care of the Skellies, and now he needs to waste the Miner there. And it's on tower as well, so that should be game. He is going to win with this deck, the unwinnable. He made it happen.
And you shall receive, my friend. We just wanted to see one win with this deck, and it's going to pick it up here. Game number 4 of our third set of the day. Now, there is still 35 seconds left to play, and who knows? Aslan could make something happen, but it does feel like you are the Lava Master, Eric. Yeah. It does feel like there is no shot.
No. I mean, it has to come from a huge mistake if he wins this game. I just don't see it happening. The Elite Barbarians should be coming down here to defend. Where are your Elite Barbarians?
Oh, wow.
Where are your Elite Barbarians?
Oh, wow. E-Barb is on the tower, 10-11 now to 320. E-Barbs are coming back down for Aslan, but no E-Barbs in response from Inthrill.
Oh my
God. Making this way too close for comfort. Fireball is in. Oh my goodness. Oh my good. And you can see Inthrill looking off going, how on earth did that get as close as it did in those final moments? Couple missed pickup, not enough elixir for the Elite Barbarians, and just in the nick of time, talk about being saved by the bell.
Yeah, that phrase was made for that moment. Half a second more and that was it. That was game over. Intro can't believe it. I don't know if he can't believe that he held on or he can't believe that it got that close. I'm not really sure what happened. All you had to do was go full defense, and it seemed like it just got away from him, but he's got to be feeling great right now that he has gotten that deck out of the way. But hey, you still need to win with that RG deck, and I'm pretty sure we saw that RG deck struggle versus this lava one.
Yes, this is exactly what we're going to see is Inthrill's RG deck that he just lost the mirror matchup to Aslan, and Aslan going to go right back to most likely lava.
Yeah, we saw the opposite happen to Aslan in the first set, where we spoke about wow, I just mentally Burkan, will he go to that mortar deck versus the RG? And then he actually chose to go to the lava first, and the lava destroyed the RG deck. So now Aslan has that same matchup, but in his favor.
So game number 5 underway here. We are all tied up at 2, and That's catching up. That's why you guys know exactly what we're talking about. Lava Hound, Lava Miner, going against the most popular, most successful deck in the game right now, and we will see how Inthrill fares. Do you have a matchup favor in this specific game, Eric?
If it goes to 2 towers, RG wins 100%. If he can keep that RG from getting a tower down, which it doesn't seem like it, because this is going to be a lot of damage. That log was very, very overkill. I would have loved to see him hold on to that 2 elixir extra and start an RG in the back, but now it's not as bad as it seemed. He needs to get a tower down though, Aslan. If this goes into a 2 tower game, RG should take it.
Yeah, I would have loved to see that there with the RG instead. After getting that incredible amount of fireball value in the center of the map, the E-Barbs and the Tombstone all basically cleaned up with 1 fireball. The log, you get the idea behind it, just get a little bit more damage in, but G resetting on the left hand's been better.
Yeah, that 2 elixir is worth a lot more than 80 damage on tower always. If that is what you're between, you always save that 2 elixir and restart again. Nice damage coming out of the RG. 2 hits, even though there was Inferno Dragon and I think he's gonna sell out on the left. Maybe Tombstone. There's a Tombstone. This is it. This is it for Inthrill. If you can defend this push, you win the game.
And Mother Witch is going to go off the board as these elite barbarians going to take down that left-hand tower. Miner comes in late, so now Miner, no Miner to support, but that Mega Minion is late, and now a Fireball plus Heal Spirit. Yeah. Great defense there from Inthrill. I was very worried for just a moment. And Eric, he somehow feels like he's turned the set completely around, and it all came from a win with that deck that was doing him so dirty.
Yeah, and all he has to do now is not do the same thing he did in the last 10 seconds of the previous match. Please, just play calm. You don't need anything extra here. You need to just play your game. The lava push takes about 25 to 30 seconds to actually do anything, and you are in extra time. As soon as you see that lava, that's when you want to RG. You RG, you save the log for the Tombstone, and then there is no way he can defend. He needs to be patient and wait for the moment. That is not what I was talking about. Do not fish him in on the bridge.
I don't know why he's even going for that tower, maybe trying to create an offensive presence, but that is the stronger of the 2 towers, and Aslan knows he needs to just take this game, but it's come down to the very last second there, and there's still 90 seconds of gameplay remaining.
Yeah, and it's just, it was that patience, right? You knew the lava was going to come down. If he just waited for it and RG'd as soon as that happened, that was it. That was game over. He's still going to win. But when you get to, I'm talking, I demand perfection always just because of the way I am. And the other thing is, it's not about winning this set only. You need to play perfect if you're going to go for that big money. You know you're going to play against people like Hugo, One Hive, Burke, and all these players, and those mistakes will cost you.
So Inthrill turns the set around. He picks up game number 1 as he did in his previous set. He with that Ram Rider Mega Knight deck with the Bomber in there and Magic Archer, but he somehow to win with it. Very good on him, playing through 2 tough matchups in this set for his first 2 wins, and then you saw there game number 5, and his 3rd win was pretty much exactly how he hoped it to go.
Yeah, he worked. It was all about the beginning, I think, where he got that E-Barbs damage in very early on, and it set Aslan in the back foot instead of being able to pressure with that lava without having to worry about not taking any damage. Usually when you have a lava deck, you want to put that lava down and then you say, you know what, I'll take 500 600 damage. But the problem was he had already taken 900 damage, so you can't just give that up, and it forced out weird pushes out of him that never actually led to anything.
Well, as much as you and I love getting into the final stage of a competition, that does mean that we have to start saying goodbye to more and more competitors. And, you know, it's one thing to say goodbye on day 1, but it's another thing to say goodbye in the finals when you felt like you were so close to $3,000. Aslan from Turkey had an incredible run here in Gamestars League, but that is going to do it for him. That's 2 losses on the day. In our finals, Group A, we've already eliminated 1 of our 2 players. Next up, we will see Burkan and Hugo, our 2 winners on the day, facing off to see who actually gets that first place prize. And the loser of that set will go on to face Inthril, who has had to play a lot today and still has his life on the line.
And Inthril, I applaud you, my friend, you moving on to the next part of this bracket, but that only means one thing: you gotta win again with that deck. And it's just so rough. And even when he wins, it's rough. It came down to the last second. So I wish, and he wishes, that this was the old format, right, where you have a couple days break, really figure out how to win with it. But no, this is it. You actually have to go right back into it. You have to win in what, about 30 minutes, I'd say, depending on how this set goes. And we do have to say bye to Aslan. Like you said, it hurts a lot more, at least for me. I don't know how it is for you. I'd rather go out in day one than go out in the final stage. It just hurts too much.
Yeah, I know. That's so close yet so far feeling is really, really tough. So as Inthril sits back and waits to find out who is going to be, Burkan and Hugo, our two winners from earlier on today, both picking up 3 wins in their sets. Burkan having to go the distance, Hugo in a much better spot. And honestly, if I am Inthril, I am really, really hope Hugo wins this set, because he knows that he cannot beat Hugo with that deck, and Hugo knows that as well. And honestly, with the decks that Burkan has, it's still going to be tough for Inthril, but if I am Inthril, I do not want to have to play Hugo again to stay alive. It feels like that is basically going to be a nail in the coffin. He needs Burkan to lose this set.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yes.
You never want to go up against someone that already beat you 3-1 and you know what's going to happen. At least if you go up against someone else, maybe he has the same amount of good matchups, but he just doesn't know how to play against the deck yet. Hugo has played against it 3 times. He knows exactly how you play it, which ways you like to attack, which times you like to go split lane. The last thing you want to do is go in and play him 3 more times with that deck. It's very frustrating. So yes, Inthril has to be Hugo's biggest fan right now.
And it felt like we started off today a little bit wild in our games, right? It felt like a haymaker, uppercut in one game. You know, game 2 was the other person throwing their blow. And as the day has kind of moved forward, it feels like things have kind of even keeled. And I imagine as we get into the Burkan and Hugo set, that's going to be much more of what we expect. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes the distance. And right now, I guess this is just giving us a bit of a reminder of what we just saw. You can see there Aslan on the left-hand side, just not able to pick up a win with that Lava Hound deck. And on the right-hand side, it's somehow at 50%. I don't understand how that math works out, but apparently it is at 50%
for the
on
set,
the day.
maybe.
Yeah, maybe just the set. It had to be just the set, because you and I have definitely seen it struggle quite a bit. And honestly, if Inthril was a buddy of ours, he might give us a bit of crap after the broadcast, being like, "Look, man, I picked the deck. I have to win with it. Give me a break."
Yeah.
And he did get a win, so we'll see what happens in our final set of the day. But as we were just saying, up next, it is Burkan and Hugo. And neither of them had a deck that felt like was their massive, massive detriment to success.
And to be fair, just before we move on to that next match to Inthril, I actually really like his other 2 decks. I think they're great. I love that P.E.K.K.A. Ram Rider. It's not something you expect, but it goes well in this meta. So I don't mind that at all. And the RG deck was a great choice. So I will give him props. He did great on 2 out of 3. And if he does move forward, he doesn't have to change much, just 1 deck.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll be able to see the decks of the players coming up next. And if not, we'll be able to definitely look at them after the set. And this is our winner's set. Winner gets to move on to our international finals this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. We're going to start in the exact same time as we always do. The schedule of when we finish will change a bit this entire. We're doing 5 BO5s Tuesday through Friday, and then of course BO7 Saturday and Sunday. So we have no ideas if they're going to be sweeps. We have no idea if they will go the distance. So just join us every single 9 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, and of course 6 p.m. Central European Summer Time. And we're just holding on this final winner's set, not our final set of the day, but our winner's set here in the winner's side of the bracket. Do you have a favorite going into this, Eric?
I think they both played very, very well in the first match. I didn't get to see enough out of Burkan because, like you said, those matches were so just very early decided that I can't really pinpoint if he played amazing, if Aslan just had good matchups sometimes, what it really was. So I don't have a favorite here, but if I'm going to go off the whole tournament, what I've seen, I'd say Hugo.
Yeah, Yeah, Hugo has played very, very nice, and even though Hugo does miss the pickup there with the Electro Spirit, takes just a little bit of damage for it. You see some good damage in return there with that push from the Miner plus Musketeer.
Yeah, and here we go with the lava in the back. There is no Inferno Dragon in cycle. And does he have Zap or Snowball in this deck? There it is. There's a Zap to take care of those Spear Goblins. That's always nice. And now it's just going to be about taking care of that Musketeer. That's what this game is going to come down to. But this should have something to defend this. A Valk coming down. There it is.
Yep, high Valk after the Electro Spirit. Not enough Elixir to send the Miner in on top of that Musketeer. So Musketeer going to play great cleanup here with help of that Fireball. And now Muskie will get a couple shots if left unattended, and especially a couple more now with the help of that Miner.
Yeah, it's a little bit of that when you play lava. How do I take care of the Musketeer? The Musketeer is your biggest enemy at all times, because you don't want to just Fireball Zap it every time. You lose a lot of Elixir. You lose a lot of your push. So you got to really figure out the right moment to do it. Will I Miner? Will I Miner Zap? What can I do? Because if you cannot get it off the board, your whole push is gone.
Yeah, and that Zap is something that Hugo's going to want to, or Burkan is really going to want to hold on to, just because he can get so much on those Spear Goblins. And those are, as we talked about a lot today, very difficult to get to, especially when that Miner is going to have to focus maybe more on that Musketeer initially than Goblins.
And his Musketeer placements have been perfect. He's not giving any value at all, and he's making sure they stay alive to get maximum damage. And what was that, 3 mortar hits?
Yeah, 3 mortar hits. Now you see the Valkyrie going in up high. Valkyrie placed in the perfect spot to kite the Inferno Dragon away. Nice mortar comes in, and that is a real sequence there by Hugo. This Miner is going to go off the board with the help of that Valkyrie. Oh, wow. Miner stays just long enough. Bit unfortunate there for Hugo.
He caught the Electro Spirit. Very, very smart out of him to make sure he catches that, and that's the reason why he didn't lose the game right there. But again, he's spreading out the Spear Goblins and the Musketeer to not give away Zap and Fireball on both. This should have a log at some point. He's gonna, I really like that Miner because it makes the mortar targeted as well.
Yeah, that's a really, really nice Miner. You see the defensive Miner have to come out by Hugo, which is something you never, ever want in these matchups. Now you have to go through your entire cycle once again before getting any damage or any real damage on tower. Now we go high mortar. Valkyrie there to respond. Maybe we see a log here to help out, keep that Musketeer on the board. No, she takes 1 hit from the E-Barb and a couple belches from that baby dragon.
Yeah, he had to expect that Zap. I saw it coming. Nice little. I like the predictions we're seeing. He's like, you can throw this, I can throw this as well. How do you like it? And this match could not be any closer.
7 HP separate the top end of the screen. That is a big time mortar connection. You talk about a great select as well. A 100% healthy, well, let's call it 9% healthy Musketeer now about to cross the bridge. She sneaks in front of the Valkyrie. A bit of an unfortunate interaction there. And you go Miner to the back with the help of the log. This has been a beautiful final few moments from Hugo.
And Hugo at this point is just trying to cycle to make sure that this gets this match finishes as quickly as possible, but he needs to defend that Miner that is giving away 600 damage or so, and now he cannot go in because that's going to get Skarmied.
So he instead, there's the Miner. Great Fireball. Log is in, and that is going to do it. This is exactly what you want to see in our winner's bracket. 134 HP. Beautiful predictions on both sides of it, and a nail biter there in the final moment.
That was beautiful match out of both players. I don't see mistakes out of either of them. They just both played so well, and that's the reason we got a sub 100 HP finish. I want to say congrats on a great match to both of them, honestly. Yeah, you lost Burkan, but that was just a beautiful Clash Royale.
Yeah, and it went back and forth so many times there. You love to see the predictive plays. I love to see as many kites as we did, and also recognizing your threats, right? Recognizing what your biggest threats were to deal with at all times and making sure that those were dealt with in sequence. You know, there was only a couple times where we saw maybe slight defensive, I don't even want to call them misplays, but maybe backwards decision-making where you could have done one thing instead of the other. But for the most part, it was just all the way around. I mean, even the things like catching that Electro Spirit to keep the Miner on the board, to take that mortar shot, that's an easy thing to do, and it really does change the game.
Yeah, both of them were so proactive in everything that's what made this match so nice to see. He hovered the zap always on the spear goblins. He knew where they were going to come down. We saw predictive fireballs, predictive logs. Everything was just, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to take the game into my hands. And it was just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I hope the whole set is like that.
And I know one thing that made you happy as the coach was some really, really great placement on your troops to never give a ton of spell value. You called it out with the Musketeer early on, but happened all throughout that game, whether it was fire, logs, zaps, great spell value from both players. So here we go. Game number 2, first game going in favor of Hugo. Lava in the back, Mega Knight in the back, working down separate lanes.
And like you said, that is one of, as a coach, that's one of my pet peeves, when you give up just too much value with the spell damage. And as long as you can, especially when you're playing those mortar decks, right, every card is so valuable that you need to make sure that goes off. And that Mega Knight getting a lot of value as well.
Lot of value. Fireball comes in on top of those zappies to help clean up and get a bar barrel healer to turn that Inferno Dragon around. And doing what you probably should do at this stage is just create pressure on the left and let only the Lava Hound get damage on the right. But we'll see how this miner has dealt with great E-barbs there. And Mother Witch stays alive with that zap. And that zap has been a bit of a foe of Burkan so far.
Yeah, that is, I mean, you kind of have to know that it's not, but you're hoping that it is gonna take care of it. It's usually an interaction that I already have tried enough to know that it doesn't go down well playing as much lava as I do. And now the fireball comes down right as the huggies also come down, and Burkan's struggling here.
Yeah, Burkan really struggling here. As Henchman, Hugo is making this a very clean set so far. He had to work for it a lot in game number 1, but game number 2 is very in his favor.
Yeah, and I think it all started with that Mega Knight push. It forced out the fireball onto the zappies, and then he didn't have it for the Mother Witch. If he had that for the Mother Witch, he wouldn't have had to miner so preemptively, which then got defended by the Elite Barbarians that ended up taking the tower. So it's something for everyone at home to notice how Clash is one of those things where it snowballs so quickly that you kind of have to make every interaction be the right one, because one little fireball caused the whole match to just be one-sided.
Yeah, and also you have to recognize when in moments you just lose a tower and completely reset, and yeah, that is going to do it. Hogs on that princess as the king tower goes down. Hugo 2 up, 2 down, and a very strong showing so far in this set. And you know, Burkan's first set was fun. It was back and forth, as you know, as we were kind of talking about, but Hugo was much more dialed in that second set that we saw, and it does feel like he's kind of carried that on through to our winners part of the bracket. Yeah,
Hugo's not messing around today. He does not want to give up any games to anyone, not giving them any breathing room. Hugo, I'm pretty sure he lost his first match and then won 3 straight, and now on a 2-win streak. So 5 straight matches that he's won here, and let's see if he can close it out. If I'm Hugo, I do not want to give him any chance back into this set.
And he has so much momentum riding in his favor right now. He can sit back for an entire and just like figure out exactly what his opponent's going to do. Maybe he comes out with what he expects to be his worst matchup. That's probably what I would do in this game, is come out with my worst matchup, try to pick up a win with it, and then just know that I have 2 better matchups down the line.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's part of understanding this format, and it's something that I really like, is the mind game behind everything. It's not that much. Early on in the competition, what I liked the most was that decksmanship that you love so much, but as we've moved on, I think the mind game is so much fun with this type of format.
I agree. I you know, when we first joined Gamestars, I didn't quite understand why this format was what they had chosen. But after being here for over 2 months now of calling these match, I really do love it. It was kind of like when, you know, the and at first loss came into competitive play for a while. I also really kind of love that twist. I think this is a great twist on duels.
I agree 100%, and I don't mind this format moving into other competitions later on. I do want to see how it fares in a best of 7, because that is tough, but hey, I'm not gonna knock it until we see it, because that has been a downfall of mine in Clash Royale for a long time.
Nice job there by Hugo, who was actually able to turn what felt like a tower down into only about halfway. Pretty decent defense there, but he struggled on the left-hand side. Burkhan doing great job again with that Skarmy on the E-Barbs. Hugo only hits about, I think, 60% of the Skellers with his log.
Yeah, and I mean, wow, that was a weird elixir leak there, being up 2 and playing a lava deck. He should have been a little bit more aware there not to get him back into the game, but it seems like he went with a very, very decent matchup, to say the least. But what a good defense from Hugo. Those 3 skellies made all the difference right there.
Yeah, and look at that, a fight here with the miner, and now a miner in response here from Ethan, but a zap comes out from Hugo to hopefully get that miner off the board before those skeletons get there. Not quite the case, so an ice golem has to come down as well.
Yeah, but look how much damage just came in from that one mortar, and he's back in the game. I cannot believe I'm saying this. I thought it was game over, and he's selling it here. I'm sure he's going to be hovering those elite barbarians in case they're needed, and I'm very surprised with what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, so we're going for a great situation right now, and hopefully getting to which game if you are Burkhan, as this tower on the left-hand side is very, very quickly. Ice Golem up high. That Ice Golem not going to fall down at the correct moment to take the skeletons off, so a log comes in as well. Now a Musketeer coming in the back. Princess behind the Princess Tower now. No Fireball in, no tank in. And we've seen Oops come out from Burkhan.
I'm not sure why he didn't Fireball, because this is what I've said a lot of other times. You end up spending more elixir by not wanting to use your spell than if you just use your spell and get that out of the way, get that push, you know, really out there, and that is something I don't like to see.
That is really tough. There's the Fireball you're talking about. Now we get the reset with the Zap. Baby Dragon on the power. Miner finally goes down. I don't actually know how he navigated his way out of that, but he did it. 31, 21, 17, 36 on the bottom of your screen. A healthy King Tower at the top with an 18 on the Princess.
Yeah, that if those Musketeers were just split a little bit further apart, it would have been a whole different game. And unfortunate for him, he did get that Fireball onto it, but wow, that is a lot. Okay.
Yeah, that was an interesting Fireball at the end, and I was actually going to say, with that E-Barbs plus Ice Golem push, I wanted to see the log behind. I wanted to see the log behind, because you know he wasn't going to play it up. And yeah, you're saying no there, Eric, because that Musketeer played up high to get on top of the Inferno. But saving grace here is that sliver HP Muskie that somehow survived.
This is when, if you're playing like a Call of Duty game, you're screaming one shot, one shot, one shot. I swear, I swear, go get him. I cannot believe that Musketeer stayed alive. That is crazy. And the reason I said oh no is because that Baby Dragon getting a couple hits before the Muskie targets it is not a big deal. But what is a big deal is that once it gets hit by that Baby Dragon, it is Fireball value all the way through, seeing as it will go down. It doesn't need the zap as well.
The work here with the orders to turn down the lavas, to turn around the Infernos, the kites with the Ice Golem, another brilliant one right there. I don't know how Hugo has done it, but he has somehow survived this long. And
I think he
Fireball
just
on
did it.
King Tower. Yeah, it feels like this is the end of it. Ice Golem there. We get the Musketeer in the pocket, Baby Dragon, and the zap is there. Skeletons are in cycle, Eric. I cannot believe what I'm seeing.
I cannot either. Will he get a Fireball down in time?
Oh my
goodness.
Last second, and he gets it in 3-0 set with 166 HP remaining.
Wow.
That was some of the best Clash Royale we have seen in Gamestars, man. That was nutty there at the end.
Hey man, I predicted it. Thank you to everyone. Yeah, I said Hugo. No, that was great, Hugo. Applause to you. I cannot believe you just won a 2-tower game with Mortar versus Lava Ebarb Skarmy. That is impressive, my friend.
I don't know how every single one of those kites was just perfect enough. They got just enough space. That 1 HP Musketeer saved him game. You got those high Ice Golem kites to turn around E-Barbs. You got the high mortars to turn around the Infernos. The amount of Infernos and baby dragons that stacked up behind the lava that he was still able to, I just don't even have words for it.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm really impressed. And now I'm starting to think maybe that deck from Inthril isn't that bad and Hugo is just that good. I don't know, man, because he did lose to Hugo and Burkan showed that, I mean, he beat Aslan pretty well, and look what happened here. So maybe it isn't as bad as we think. He just came up against the best player in this group.
I mean, you could be 150% correct. So far, it's proven to definitely be the strongest player in this group. Burkamp, he won Aslan. So then you talk, or excuse me, they went in 2 with Aslan. So that was the distance there. But then you saw the hurt just get put on here. And Aslan was definitely one of the guys I was looking at coming into today that I would not have been surprised if he was in first or second place. I was actually more surprised to see him eliminated early on. And right now, Hugo just seems to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I mean, props to him. He definitely deserves to move on into the next stage. When you see someone play that well with that many different archetypes, that many different styles of play, you deserve it. And I'm so excited to see him move on and what we're going to see in the future. If we get what we expect, and I'm gonna be able to see him play against the One Hype Hunters and the SBs and everything, I'm really excited for this weekend.
Yeah, I honestly just cannot say enough positive things about this game specifically. You saw there a fireball going in a bit late, trying to get on top of units that had already been cleaned up off the board. So that was one of the few mistakes that he did make. And then you see right there, 6 HP separating the two. The fireball lands. You and I are frozen in space. And there's the reaction. That's the fireball in the last second. And I do love that the production team has pulled our cameras for those final moments, because those are as authentic as it gets in terms of CR reactions.
Yeah, and it's always funny to see yourself react because you don't even realize how you react until you watch it. And I don't even remember putting my hands on my face. I don't remember. That is crazy. And it's that emotion that, like, it's a 5-minute match. It's literally a 5-minute match and it causes that emotion out of you. I love Clash, and I love those endings that you don't really get to see that often.
I couldn't agree more. I love Clash Royale so much, and those moments really add the cherry on top. And you look here at Hugo's run on the day, Eric, you called it out in the middle of it. He's 6-1, and I'm pretty sure, as you said, that game was his only loss. So he's actually 6-0, or on a 6-0 run at the moment. But luckily for everyone else in Group A, Hugo is done until this weekend, where we will see him at the international finals in BO7s. But now Burkan and Inthril, the winner of our first set, going up of our second set of the day, and of course turning it back around in the third set that we saw against Aslan. He's had a lot of work to those 3 decks, Eric.
Yeah, he does. But Inthril, I mean, he's celebrating just as much as we are for Hugo that he does not have to play him again. Now he has a shot at someone who's coming off an 0-3 defeat. And this is where I might actually start with the deck. I might start with the cursed deck right now. Take advantage of the mentality possibly coming out of Burkan right now. He's on a down, you're on an up. You just won your match. You don't have to play Hugo. You won with that deck. Go for it. Take the risk. Why not?
I love it. I think that's a really great call. I think you're 100% correct. Everyone, no matter who you are, coming off of an 0-3 set loss, it messes with you just a little bit, especially those games. The first game and that last game were so freaking close, and it's not often that you get a pro player that gives the classic angry emoji, right? I'm pretty sure it's on the back of that guy over there, but it's something that, you know, I mean, it's honestly a moment of transparency and honesty there from Burkan, just going, man,
Yeah.
Game 1, I lose by this much. Game 3, I lose by 100 HP, or in that moment, it felt like really 6 HP because we didn't know if that fireball was going to land or not. And that is tilting, to say the least. I love the call with Indro going with his least successful deck.
It's one of those moments where it's we're all human, whether you like it or not, and you are gonna tilt after an 0-3. Yes, some players recover quicker than others, but you're not at your best after losing an 0-3 match. And he's going here with the RG deck, which I did not expect out of him first off, but I don't mind it either, not going with the deck that he has chosen to start off every set with. So a little bit of a change here, but will he actually be able to take care of this firecracker is the biggest question, seeing as that royal delivery will take care of the elite barbarians for the most part. Gets that one nice hit at the end, and here we go. RG in the back. I don't mind this, but you know you are going up against Mortar, so how are you going to take care of it? I don't mind this matchup at all for Burke, and I actually think it is something that he was looking for. We saw him play against RG and completely dominate Aslan when Aslan played this match, so I expect to see the same out of it again. This is just repeat what you have done, my friend. I don't care if you are tilt or not, you know how to win this matchup. Mega Minion coming down. Huggies, everything will get taken care of with those very, very strong and potent 2 elixir spear goblins on the board. Fisherman comes down, and we are just gonna get a reset here over and over again until we hit that double elixir, which we might see an RG come down at the back. And no delivery now in cycle for the elite barbarians could be a little bit tricky as well. Here's the RG in the back, and this could be a moment where you split lane pressure as well. You know that there is no delivery, you know that the fisherman is out of cycle for yourself, so there it is. There's the split lane. I like the firecracker being taken out of cycle. Fisherman gonna be brought in here, and that is one elite barbarian down. Nice log as well, and he's playing very well.
Yeah, that was a really, really nice log there, and that's something that obviously you don't want to give too much value moving forward. The dual lane pressure E-Barb split in the back has actually become one of my favorite interactions with that card.
Yeah, I really, really like it as well. And wow, that is a little bit unfortunate for Inthril there, that the fisherman pulled the elite barbarian that had no health on it, and it allowed the other one to really get into it. And fireball possibly onto the firecracker, I'm not sure.
I like that pull with the fisherman there, getting the ice golem back to the E-Barbs. Doesn't get quite a lot out of it. 810 to 815, only separated by 5 HP at the moment. There's our King Tower activation coming in with that, as the RG gets set up in the back.
Yeah, and Burkhead's struggling a little here in a matchup that he dominated against Aslan. And I'm not sure, it might just be that the fact that he lost, he's coming off a loss right now, but you see a little bit of the pain that he's going through to really get these defenses in. It feels like he's just doing enough, and here that delivery is really saving him, I think.
Yeah, delivery is really, really helping out. There's the high ice golem. Should be back around to another mortar here. No mortar in time. As that RG connects, there is one E-Barb getting pulled away, which is going to allow that RG to get another shot in, and that was a massive, massive moment of momentum going in favor of Inthril.
Yeah, and the Mega Minions soaking up all the damage from those Spear Goblins as well. And another card that we don't really speak about that much, right? The Mega Minion always just seems to be another card in the deck, but in this one, basically just saved his whole defense.
And look at that beautiful fireball in, and that is going to do it right there. 180 remaining, so not quite enough to take the tower down, but very, very close. And yeah, the Mega Minion, right? One of the most tried and true cards in the entire game. It feels like there's only a few cards that are just like that. The Mega Minion, the Ice Golem, they're just a couple cards that they're never really going to go anywhere. They're always useful.
Yeah, it's just they're not the stars of any deck, but they're the reason the deck can fit all together. It's like the glue to the deck, and the Mega Minion is definitely there. When you play that, when you have that RG, the reason it could defend against the lavas and the loons, and then stuff like this where it soaks up and it takes care of the miner and the spear goblins, it's so useful.
And you got to be aware of that stuff if you are Burkan. You know, if you're going to send in a miner plus Spirit Goblins push and your opponent's best response or only response, and obviously there's a lot going on at that time, but that's how you get to be the best in the world, is you recognize what it is, and it's probably going to be a Mega Minion in that moment. So instead of just going miner to the safe spot with Spirit Goblins at the bridge, just send the miner to the back. Make your opponent have to work just a little bit harder to clean that stuff up.
Especially if King Tower is already activated, right? You know, you're not really risking anything. And Inthrill is giving a little bit of a head bob. Maybe he's got some music going. He's feeling it. He's like, all right. I'm starting off the way I want it. And I won a matchup that I probably shouldn't have won, that Berkan already won today. And he's got to be feeling good and coming in with the P.E.K.K.A deck now.
I think you're just completely correct. Oh man, he does look like he's kind of vibing right now with himself, and I would be too, after having a very, very tough first set of the day, feeling like one deck was going to be the reason you weren't going to be able to be successful at all. And as you said, a couple of great moments with matchups and some really heads-up play, and he's played 3 the day, and you know what? He's earned at least to be in this spot, and maybe he's going to earn his way all the way to our finals.
Yeah, and now he has a P.E.K.K.A deck versus the RG, so he's not feeling bad at all. And he has a P.E.K.K.A Ram Rider that, you know, the Ram Rider actually defends the RG very well. The best players with it get so much value.
Yeah, the best players with Ram Rider, they make all those big tanky pushes, whether it's Giant, Goblin Giant, RG, Golem, Balloon, even a Hog Rider, Tower Seeking card. The best Ram Rider players will use defensively and then get something down up front. And that's really why the Ram Rider still is one of the best win conditions in the game. It's just kind of a hard card to use perfectly.
Yeah, it's exactly that. The best players, like, if you ever watch a match, and I'm hoping he makes it one day into the top 8 of the CRL, if you watch Wero play bridge spam with Ram Riders, it's something that I could watch all day, and it's the utility that they get out of it that us normal people do not get out of it.
It's what they can do with all the other cards that Ram Rider defensively, because the other part of that is you'll see him defend so well, get a big push going down one lane, and then you'll just see the Ram Rider plus something go out in the opposite lane, and their opponent has 0 to defend. So here we go, as we're about to tick 15 seconds into double elixir. P.E.K.K.A going to come out to need a Fisherman plus E-Barbs plus a Heal Spirit.
Yeah, and overall nice defense out of him, and that is going to get pulled. The Elite Barbarian is basically gone, and I don't think he should defend the left side. He is going to defend it. I'm not sure why. I would have loved to just see him hold on to that E-Wiz, use it better to defend the right-hand side, but it is what it is, and Ram Rider should come in here. No, he decides to go P.E.K.K.A instead.
And he goes P.E.K.K.A instead, even though he has the elixir and the cycle for both, and now that P.E.K.K.A going to deal with both of these E-Barbs. Barbaro there to help clean up, but not enough. Oh, just enough space there. We get that Mother Witch protected. But a Fireball going to come in, and now that Ram Rider down opposite lane with 6 elixir to respond.
Yeah, and such a smart play out of him. And Inthrill is on a different level of Inthrill than we saw early on today.
I love that play. Just recognizing the interaction to a T. He gets the Dark Prince in on the right hand, knows the Fisherman is going to get distracted by that. Ram Rider goes into the left, and a nice, even those towers up at 1366.
And he also knows now that Fisherman is not in cycle, and he puts a Dark Prince to make sure that P.E.K.K.A stays on the field there, and he's playing perfect, man. I really like what I'm seeing. Yes, the matchup is not bad at all, but you still have to win it, and I like what I'm seeing out of him.
Yeah, E-Wiz now going to reset that tower onto the Hog to give P.E.K.K.A a little bit more life.
And nice Fireball.
Wow. Yeah, Fireball's great. Doesn't hit the Mother Witch. Does hit the Fisherman, who is targeted on the opposite lane. Ram Rider connects again on the right. And Inthrill doing all the right things right now.
Yeah, and now a nice... No. We jinxed him.
We did. And that E-Barb is going to connect tower. Luckily, the Ram Rider still locked. Somehow he gets a little saving grace with the range on that snare of the Ram Rider.
I felt so bad as soon as I saw him. Like, no way, we just jinxed him, man. He was playing so well. But this should be it. This should be game over. It should force out a Fireball. It should force out something. Hello, nothing, no defense coming out. That's pretty odd because that is now fireball range.
Yeah, that
did he not notice?
Giant is there, but the fireball on the left hand side, and in thrill is 2 up, 2 down, and what an up and down day for this young man. Now has to go, I believe he has to go to the deck. He has to go through
the down route now. This now he's going to the reason it's been an up and down day. But if he keeps playing the way he's been playing this set, I don't see any issues with him actually winning with it.
I mean, he has to lose 3 in a row right now to get eliminated. Burkan and InThrill both battling for their lives here in our international group stage finals. This is the final week of competition here in Gamestars League. Every single day, 4 players will come out to play here in our group stages, and 2 of them will be eliminated. We've seen Hugo go on to the finals. We've seen Aslan fall. And now only 1 game stands in the way of a second place for InThrill and an adios to Burkan. But he's got to do it with a deck that he's struggled with quite a bit.
Yeah, but on the other end, it is mentally taxing to be 0-5. He is 0-5 right now in the past 5 matches he's played. And there hasn't been a break in between them. He has gone back to back to back to back to back. Losing 5 in a row is not easy for anyone. I don't care how experienced you are.
See it there on the left-hand side of your screen. 0-5 ever since winning set of the day. Burkan took down Aslan 3-2 in that opening set, but since then, since Aslan has been eliminated, it's been an 0-5 day for Burkan.
Yeah, and this is it. If you're gonna gain your confidence somewhere, it has to be playing against this deck. I mean, you know exactly what he has. He's played it so many times. I'm sure Burkan has been watching his opponents while he was on his break from that first set, so you should know the way he plays it and exactly what to expect as well.
Barbarian does not get a hit in there. Perfect defense from Burkan, who, as you said, knows what those last 2 cards are and probably knows exactly how he wants to deal with them, but he cannot find himself in that position that he kept finding himself in last game, which was the Fisherman pulling the wrong direction in its first swing.
Yeah, and it's gonna come down to the Ice Golem Ram Rider pushes, in my opinion. That is what's gonna allow you to, you know, force the Fisherman out in weird placements, and I really like what he's doing here. InThrill is playing so well.
He's like a man possessed from what we saw earlier today. We get that bombered out behind a very healthy E-Barb there. Will get cleaned up by the help of the Mega Minion and that Princess Tower. Elixir basically even, and a Barb Barrel gonna get cycled to the right-hand side.
Yeah, I mean, this is a completely different InThrill than the first set we saw of the day. It seems like beating Aslan really gave him a sense of confidence that he was missing at the beginning.
I mean, Aslan from Turkey, as I was saying just a moment before we got into this set, was a guy that I would not have been surprised to take this entire set, or at least take second place. So I have to imagine you're right there, Eric. That was probably a huge confidence booster, a very rough opening set. And when you talk about value, that Inferno Dragon getting loads of it.
Yeah, same with that Fireball, though. He did give up a lot of Fireball value on the right by putting a Magic Archer together with that bomber, so he needs to be careful there, because if it wasn't for all that Fireball value that he gave, he would have a huge lead on the game right now.
Yep, and that lead just diminishes even more as he takes a hit there from Elite Barbarian number 2.
Yeah, and those hurt.
And that also hurts when you drop a unit on top of something second late. Now we're going to see him double down on him. All of his best damage dealers are off to the right-hand side as that Royal Giant is cycled in the back. Great Fireball there to clean up, but that Elite Barbarian is tanked for.
Yeah, and now he has Inferno Dragon here. No Fireball to reset it.
Wow.
And InThrill, yes, this is what I like to see. Good job. Take the risk. I love it.
There it is. You see the aggressive Ice Golem Magic Archer, as you and I have talked about it tirelessly today. Honestly, at this point, it feels like InThrill Lizardcast was like, you know what? These guys do not know what they're talking about. I'm going to line this up. I'm going to win this set. I'm going to walk away with the second place victory, and I'm going to do it on the shoulders of the struggled with the most and Magic Archers connecting to that Princess Tower. But Thrill has turned the day around.
He could finish it off here with the Magic Archer if he wanted to, and he decides to just force out the fireball, which means one thing. No, he missed it. Yeah, a little bit too eager. I meant take the risk in the right times, my friend. You did it right. But what he does have to know here is that
sell out pusher on the left-hand side.
Yeah, this is a little bit risky from him. The Inferno Dragon didn't have to be predictive. You have so much damage left on the tower, and you need to be very careful. That fireball is not what I want to see. Now you need to deal with that, and he just lost the game.
Where's the HP? I mean, it was 39 HP. Second fireball comes down. Second RG shot goes in, and my goodness, he almost drops the game there in the final moments, but he does take it. Burkan has been eliminated from play, and in Thrill, we were praising him and praising him and praising him, and then in those final moments, he almost dropped the game. But he is our second place player from Group A.
Yeah, the second time he does that with that deck. The first time was against Lava. But hey, all that matters is that you won with it in Thrill. Go back into the lab and click the edit button, erase deck, and let's move on with a different one going into that weekend.
That's a really important for you to point out, Eric. This is Group A. We have Group B tomorrow. We have Group C on Thursday and Group D on Friday. Then we get into again competition, which is the finals, where we will see InThrill and Hugo once again, where they are playing best of sevens with new decks. And I can't imagine we will see that deck again from InThrill. Who knows? Maybe he will, but he definitely made it hard on himself a couple times today. And you saw the disappointment on Burkan's face. I mean, talk about a way for your day to just get flip-flopped. InThrill went for the positive, but Burkan dropping 6 in a row.
Yeah, after starting off with a win, going into that winner's final, you're feeling great, and not getting a single match to go your way really does hurt more than just getting eliminated. But that's the way Clash works. I've lived the ups, I've lived the downs, and all you can do is keep practicing, maybe choose different decks that fit better into your play style, and it's all a learning experience.
Yeah, and it is really kind of fascinating. Something that you pointed out earlier, Eric, was just that, like, maybe it wasn't that InThrill was struggling that much. Maybe it was just that Hugo was that good early on. And it does feel like that after watching all of the rest of the sets that InThrill played in, that Hugo maybe just is that good.
Yeah, and I mean, that is reaction number 3 on the day. The matches have been so close, and Hugo, I mean, if I could see anyone that deserves to, you know, like, I can say, wow, he almost lost today, all this, Hugo just really deserves that first place. Congrats to InThrill for having, you know, the mentality to, you know, sit there and say, you know what, I'm gonna come back after I just lost 3 times with this deck. That is not easy.
Yeah, you look at the numbers on the screen there. InThrill has played 12 games today as opposed to Hugo's 7. So a much different path to the finals here. Hugo, 6-1 on the day. InThrill, a good amount of wins, a good amount of losses, but second place really matters. And what an impressive performance from both of these guys who had very different paths to victory, as I've said, but we're going to obviously talk with one of them here, and I believe we will be talking to Hugo, so we're going to wait and see and make sure that he is ready for his interview before we send it over to him. But a very dominant performance from that young man today. Some really great deck choice, and honestly just recognition of the game. I feel like we're going to see this almost every coming into today. He felt like one of the favorites, and he did not disappoint.
Yeah, and I'm very curious to, you know, talk to him and see if there's anyone in this tournament that he actually, you know, has a little bit more fear going up against, because it seems like right now he's cruising through. Ever since the first day that we saw him, I haven't seen him struggle against absolutely anyone.
Yeah, I you know, and as I said, when we are going to be interviewing him, I have some questions for him as well. It does seem, as you're just saying, Eric, he's kind of untouched, and I'm curious, like, does he, I don't know what his favorite win condition is. I don't know what his favorite archetype is, because he seems to be so well with so many different ones.
Yeah, and it could just also be, you know, he is someone that has played a lot of tournaments. That experience at the end of the day, when you look at this bracket, InThrill, Burkan, all these players don't have the same experience that he does, and that is a big factor when you're playing matches that, you know, ultimately, yeah, this match specifically wasn't 30,000, but at the end of the day, this is a $30,000-$40,000 tournament.
And here we go. These are all of the remaining players in the tournament, other than Burkan and Aslan, who were just eliminated. Group B up tomorrow. SoCal Eternity, One Hive Hunter, and Roofy. A couple of those guys haven't played in weeks. A couple of those just battling out a couple weeks ago. Group C, Lucas GSM, Abdullah Imad, Financier, and Demas. And of course, Group D on Friday. Broken, Beneficious, Demon Chocolate, and SB. SB, a guy that I was fans of. I liked our interview with him after the game when he was talking about playing against Abdullah Imad, who I'm very excited to see how he plays in this tournament. He adjusted really well on his second day of competition, and he even acknowledged the fact that people were expecting me to do one thing, and I basically did that with a bit of a twist on it, and I'm going to bring something different to finals. So I'm very excited to see what he does. I assume we'll still see Lava Hound, but I'm hoping we'll see something a bit different as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you go 2 or 3 times Lava against players like SB, Dimas, all these people that are so experienced, they're going to expect it. It's not the same. We're not in the same stage. No disrespect to the other players he's played, but this is the best of the best. This is everyone that is here has gone through what you went through and either did it better or the same as you. Some people qualified in day one, so you need to be very careful with your strategy moving forward.
And it's also really important that you don't kind of put yourself in the position that we found in Thrill in today and what we've talked about before, which is just if you have a specific win condition or a style of win condition, you maybe play it once, twice maximum. But talking about Abdullah and Lava Hound, I don't think it's going to work moving forward. We saw today with Inthrill. I think the players that we've seen with the most success in GameStars are those 3 different archetype win condition players that have come out, because even someone like Predator we saw had to change things up in his second day of competition. Yeah, it didn't work out for him, but we know that he got to that second day just by the, you know, by the skill disparity, probably is just how much better he was, because the 3 decks that he chose with Mortar were not good matchups. He got away with it, and then it didn't really work out later on. I do miss Predator coming in, you know, with his button-down shirt and the classy look to the Clash Royale, but it is a different format, and you have to adapt to what you're given. Yeah, and talking about adapting, you know, the meta has clearly changed a lot since we started GameStars League, and we're seeing a lot more of what really is popular. And I think we talked about that Royal Giant deck at the top of the show, and that did seem to be kind of the one deck that popped up in every competitor's hands, or at least in 80% of them today. Is there anything else out there that feels like is a must-have? I mean, are there 3 must-have decks right now? I really like the P.E.K.K.A. Bridge Spam deck. I think the traditional one with the Fireball instead of the Poison is very, very strong right now. I love to see it. And P.E.K.K.A. actually did very well today. I don't think Inthrill lost with that deck at all. Even though it was a different style, you just saw P.E.K.K.A. always have a lot of utility, go up very, very nice against the Elite Barbarians. And something that we also spoke about was no E-Giant, please. It gets very, very hard countered now, and we saw no one pull it out, so I'm happy with that. Yeah, that is actually really, really surprising. So that's enough out of us. Let's talk to Hugo, our winner on the day. Hugo, thank you so much for being here, and congratulations on a really, really great performance. You lost 1 game, and then you won 6 in a row. What do you attribute that to? Did you just play your... Yeah, of course, man. Did you just outplay your opponents? Did you have better decks? Why were you so successful today?
I just took decks I'm good with. So I took 2 Mortar deck, and I practice a lot. This deck in later. So now I can beat complicated matchups, and yeah, I'm really happy of what I did.
Nice. And I have a question for you. What do you think is a bigger factor for you doing so well? The experience that you have, or the format of this event? Do you really enjoy playing in this type of format?
Yeah, of course. Now I can say that I have a good experience with a lot of competition, stressful competition. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
So in that final game that you had, it felt like a very tough matchup, especially when you got into 2 towers. You know, Mortar against Lava Hound. your kites with the ice golems, your predictive spells, your mortar kites, all that. How are you kind of able to manage those final moments where it felt like Burkhan should have won the game?
I was just super focused in my game. Um, and yeah, I don't know how I did that, but in that moment when you need to win and the stress is here, I'm really good.
That's good
It's a good time to be good.
Yeah, that is good, especially moving on to the finals. And is there anyone in the competition that you really want to play, or that you say, okay, this guy I really need to take very serious? Is there that one opponent?
This is a complicated question. There are
All right.
many good players like SB or I don't remember. What is his
You don't
name?
have to, you don't have to point out any specific one. I just wanted to know, maybe you have a rivalry with someone, you know, like when I was part of Liquid, I always wanted to play SK. I wanted to know if there was someone that you love playing against or that you're excited to, you know.
Yeah, anyone that you're a fan of or anything.
I don't have
like
a big
that.
rival in other groups, but there are many good players, so
yeah,
I would just do my best to, and it will be cool.
Yeah. Well, Hugo, thank you so much. Again, congratulations on the day. You end up losing one game and then going 6-0. So we'll see you this weekend, my friend.
Yeah, of course. See you.
Yep.
First place on the day, and honestly, he just sounds like a gamer, man. He's like, I was just locked in. That was it. I just knew exactly what I needed to do. I was able to keep my calm. And when I talk about looking forward in the competition, he's like, yeah, there's a lot of great players out there, but I think at the end of the day, you kind of just got to beat yourself. When you're this good, you're the only one that can put yourself in bad positions. So Hugo, really, really great stuff. And Eric, before we get out of here, is there anything that you what's your takeaway from today?
Be careful with your deck choices, like we've spoken about in the past. That third deck could be your downfall, so you need to be very, very careful. And on the other side, you can always come back. We saw Intro basically be as down as you can be and then come all the way back and qualify, so it's never over until it's over. Keep fighting till the end, and that's my biggest takeaway.
That's right. We're going to be back every single day for the rest of this entire week, weekdays, but weekend as well. Today's Tuesday. We'll be back Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for the rest of our group stages, limiting 2 players per day. And then this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, still the exact same time, 9 a.m. Pacific, or of course, 6 Central European summertime. $30,000 on the line. BO7's coming your way all day. For Eric Benamou, GameStars League, I am Andrew Guy. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Keep on clashing.